are back with our second of 3 sets in this triple header Sunday of SMITE Pro League action, week 5 of phase number 3. My goodness, we are cruising along. And I've learned a few things are must-dos in life. One of those things,
wash your hands.
Must listen to Neilma. At the end of that Alienware video, Neil lets you know, if I didn't have an Alienware, I'd go out and buy one right now. Here's the good news. I've got one, so I don't have to. But if you at home, you want to listen to Neil, and you want to have an Alienware, you can. And you can do it at a discounted rate. If you head on over to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code AWSMITE09, you as well can get your hands on some awesome Alienware gear. And thanks again to Alienware for powering us, myself, of course, because I have an Alienware, all the players, all of us back in production here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. My name is Dolson. Someone who also has an Alienware joining me now, it's Mifflin on the desk. He's got one as well. It's right there.
Oh, I see. Understood. I thought you were, yeah, all right.
At home?
Yeah.
Yeah, all the pros and players and production staff, they've got one.
And not us, though.
Our first set of the day, I think, a monumental step forward for the Bolts team that needed a nudge in the right direction, seemingly now starting to string a few wins together. Team in the Valhalla Valkyries in our next set could use some of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue probably an empirically more difficult opponent for the Valhalla Valkyries this time around. Whether or not they'll be able to make that bounce back here, I think if they do, awesome for the Valkyries. It'll be a downhill battle after that, right? So, you know, journey of 1,000 steps, the first one's the hardest or something, Sun Tzu.
How many times have you know what? No, we're not doing this. Camelot Kings, Valhalla Valkyries, that's our second set of the day. And then the Leviathans versus the Titans will be our final matchup of this action-packed weekend in the SPL. Remember, we've got a lot of these triple header days. We've got extra days of SPL coming up as well. So the sprint towards Worlds is on. And only 2 more matches remain here in this weekend. Only a couple 3-game sets. Could get some more at the end of the day here. So here are your standings going into the last couple of games. This one very, very important for not only the Valhalla Valkyries, but the Camelot Kings as well, Miff, who stand at 5-3, 2 games behind those first 2 spots. So if you're trying to keep things interesting with the Leviathans and the Jade Dragons, these are the type of matchups that the Kings are going to feel a little bit of extra pressure for. Because remember, top 2 at the Phase 3 playoffs only have to win 1 set, and then they go to Worlds. And so, you know, most teams will say, you know, it doesn't really matter. We're gonna have to beat everyone to make it to Worlds anyway, those types of things. Having to win less games is always going to be beneficial. So the Camelot Kings, that's what their eyes are on. Valhalla Valkyries, Smith, a team that the eyes have been on growth throughout the course of the year here this year. And we have seen, I think, some positive changes with this squad. Hasn't necessarily gotten easier, but I do think the Valkyries as a team have started to find their identity in a few of their lanes. I do think the duo lane has made some major strides.
Agreed.
And I think that this is a team probably at this point realizing, look, we're towards the end of Phase 3. Let's start figuring out some strategies. We got not much to lose in a lot of these games, and maybe play a bit more unhinged in a good way.
And it's a good time to play unhinged, I suppose, in a tumultuous weekend here. But I think the Valhalla Valkyries certainly in a very interesting position in that they have got a couple players that have adapted very well to the league. Immediately jumps to my mind. Gamma has really stepped up in recent weeks. We've really had Wowy step up. But I think BennyQ deserves a little bit of credit as well. He's self-reported, but I have checked it. No other mid laner burns as many relics as this guy. He is getting active. He's getting involved. And he's legitimately, he does a lot for this team. Sometimes it goes unsung, so I want to make sure someone's singing it this time.
You said you have checked it?
I've checked it.
Mifflin's checked it. All right, so
I've
undisputed relic-burning GOAT, BennyQ, out of the mid lane for the Valhalla Valkyries, also standing by for the pregame interview.
Dang, how many titles are we going to give for you, BennyQ? Undisputed, relic-burning, GOAT, Big Differ. I mean, the list goes on at this point, Benny, standing by for at least the mid laner of the Valhalla Valkyries. Talk to me about how important it is for your team, because right now you guys are a few wins away from being able to really kind of get into that top 6. So, I mean, how important are every single one of these matchups as you go from here on in the rest of the phase?
I think getting to top 6 is pretty important. And since there's only, like 6 sets left, I think nearly every set we kind of have to win to get to the fifth place spot.
Yeah, so definitely a very tall task for your team out here, but kind of piggybacking a little bit off of what Mifflin was saying, kind of the step up that your whole team has had. It's a story and a conversation we've been having really since the beginning of the year. How long is it going to take for the ramp up the Valks? Do you feel that you guys are right at the cusp of that ramp up? Do you guys that think that as you are getting through this third phase and making your way towards playoffs or even potentially play-ins, that you guys have made those improvements since the beginning of the year?
Well, I haven't even started trying yet, but Worlds is around the corner, so I mean, I don't know, pretty soon, I guess.
You're saying you haven't even been trying yet, is what you're saying out there.
I mean, it just wouldn't be fair for everyone else.
Wouldn't be fair. So now that you are near the end of phase 3, and now that you are starting to get towards Worlds, I imagine that's when we're going to start to see you kind of get that step up and really start to put the big pants on to try out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, talk to me a little bit about your team over here. Maybe the dynamic with Kyrmi. I mean, you and this squad have been together for a long time, ever since the Winter Dogs days back in SCC, made it into your. How has kind of been the team morale, or like the team synergy, kind of been across the year for you and your squad?
Well, it started out pretty rough. We were like, we did a lot worse than we expected to, I think, and I think that's us not giving enough credit to the other like SPL teams. And then our mentals were pretty shattered for a good few weeks, but once we started like kind of bouncing back and having good games with a lot of the top teams, our confidence just came right back.
Now, going up against a team like the Camelot Kings, I mean, these guys have been kind of discussed as being, the slower early game as far as wanting to brawl against other people, but definitely a team that loves to play around these objectives. How does that kind of change up for your team, and maybe does that even change like the drafting dynamic that you have whenever you have to go against a squad like the Kings?
Yeah, I think it affects bans more so than what we want to play, but I think that goes for every other team as well.
All right, well, BennyQ, thank you so much for your time here at the pregame show. I'll let you go back to the team, get ready to get set up, and we'll throw it back over to the desk to keep things going.
All I learned is it's over for the rest of the league once BennyQ really starts trying here. It's a terrifying thought, Myth.
He's burning so many relics, and he's not trying at all? That's crazy.
It's Gathoff is the word that you like to use when you
Guffaw?
Guffaw, is that what I said? No, I said with the
Guthoff?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. You let out a howl at that answer from BennyQ.
Benny, he's got a direct line to my funny bone, man. If you guys don't follow BennyQ on Twitter, it's SBennyQ. Dude is hilarious, man. I mean, he is just a massive, massive personality. Make sure you give him some support.
Also, beat me in the semifinals of that best
bodybuilding competition, yeah.
He probably would. That guy is huge, and it's very intimidating. The Camelot Kings are going to have to look that down across the aisle. Now, the Camelot Kings, Myth, a team that have had a different trajectory so far here this year, this phase even, fighting to be in the top 2 spots in the league at the moment. And so it really seems like a team now. They lost, remember, the other day to the Jade Dragons, who were able to pull it out in 3. The talent's no issue for this team. Finishing off some of those sets against top teams, that's where the Camelot Kings have a teeny tiny bit of room to grow. But ultimately, I don't think anyone worried about the Kings and their future.
Yeah, and I had an opportunity. I spoke with them a little bit before this set, and I'd said, look, guys, we've seen some meta changes considering some of the extenuating circumstances that we're playing under this weekend. You are no longer allowed to buy both beads and Aegis. You must make the decision between one or the other. This has led to a couple of gods rising through the pick bans a bit. Poseidon has showed up a little bit more that we've become accustomed to. Susano's really been dominant. And I'd ask, look, can we expect this from the Camelot Kings as well? Are you guys really trying to push for wins this weekend, or what's on the mindset? And Twiggles to me says, we could. And we could abuse it real bad if we felt like it, but instead we're going to keep our eyes towards Worlds. We're going to go ahead and continue to play what we think we're going to be playing once it's time for the biggest competition. So the Camelot Kings more concerned with long-term growth as opposed to short-term success.
I mean, we talk so much about Phase 3 playoffs and 4 teams qualifying from that, and then the 4 teams that don't have to go to the group stages. Ultimately, what it is going to take is an SEC or an SOC team in the group stages to upset one of our SPL squads for one of our SPL teams not to make it to Worlds. And so I think the Kings are in a position as a team where they're thinking, of course we want to be in top 2. Of course we only want to have to win 1 set. I think this team probably confident, even if they don't win that first set, even if they're not in top 2, they'll qualify from the playoffs themselves. They'll be one of the 4 teams that does. Even if somehow the Kings make their way to group stages, I'm sure this team is more than confident that they'll be able to handle business there. So honestly, it's probably a good mindset from the Kings to really work on what they think they need to be doing in the next few weeks and the next couple of months as we get down the stretch to Worlds. So the Camelot Kings playing with some confidence, the Valhalla Valkyries playing with a bit of pressure. BennyQ admitting, we kind of got to win all of them from this point on to break out of that bottom two, and we need the Bolts and the Titans to start dropping some games. Could start here up against the Camelot Kings. A monumental upset it would be. As picks and bans for game number 1 kick off, Hades, Umoja, both banned out. And I think on the topic of Twig Myth, we'll wait to see what his pick is. Been a couple Daji games, few Awilix games. Not a great set for Twig up against the Jade Dragons. 1-4, 2-7, 1-5 in those 3 games. And so I think that'll be a step forward Twig hoping to make today, kind of cleaning up some of his jungle play.
Yeah, but the Dragons were legitimately focusing a lot of pressure towards the jungle in their set.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be in a losing situation there, it makes sense that you would want to make sure the Daji doesn't really get an opportunity to thrive, make sure that the Awilix doesn't get to choose their own engagements either. The Valkyries strike me as a team that generally like to play through lanes as opposed to focusing the jungler. So I think it is a fair expectation of Twig to have a better performance in this set. And we'll see what his god selection is. There are gods that can really alleviate that pressure if that's something they're concerned about on the side of the Kings as well. Lots of value picks still available. We've seen emphasis towards supports recently. In this first pick slot, we know that Gamma for the Valkyries, very, very apt to go towards things like the Cabrakan, the Ymir has been very strong as well. But when I think of genetics, I think of the more standard support selections, things like the Khepri, the Gebs, just the back line. I'm going to make sure my teammates are making out a live style of pick. So instead, the Ishtar, first overall. Not revealing a whole lot in your draft here. We've seen Ishtar in the duo lane. She establishes pretty decent pressure there. The most recent set of the day, we've seen Ishtar in the mid lane, and it looked real good there as well. So I think all the Valks can know now is the Kings have got an Ishtar.
Now, to maybe glean some info on that, we have seen Hunter in mid for BigManTingz, but it's like only been AMC. It's been a lot of Vulcan, AMC, and then a couple other mages sprinkled in there. So I'd be surprised if this does end up being Tings, but the door absolutely open, especially if the Kings are trying to adapt to what maybe the current meta is. And a lot of double ADC compositions with Ishtar in mid have been rolling around. Last saw Ishtar on the Kings for Netrioid, 5-2-8 in a win against the Bolts just a few weeks ago. So Hunters currently banned out are CERN and AMC, and then a pick onto the Ishtar. That means Cupid now at a premium with less Hunters available. Maybe one of the strongest duo lanes you can get right now for Wowy and Gamma between the Cupid and the Ymir.
And a good time for the Valkyries to emphasize that duo lane as well, considering how well they have performed together in the last couple of weeks. Getting a high-pressure kill lane that you can play through continually, I think bodes well for the Valkyries. It's a lane that any jungler would love to rotate towards and help out and gank for because of just the CC lockdown that Ymir brings, the AoE damage that the Cupid has as well. Just very, very easy to set up some ganks there. A little bit more difficult now that the Kings have gotten one of their age-old standards, the Khepri. You can get a kill in the lane, but can you do it twice? Pretty difficult.
Wow,
or maybe even thrice if they feel like it.
For real. Now you get a Morrigan over for BigManTingz, which admittedly, Myth, I have every ounce of confidence in the world that Tings is going to be able to play this well. This is a bit out of the realm of normalcy, though, for BigManTingz. Loves the control mages, loves the big, bursty ultimate type mages, and then AMC sprinkled in there every once in a while. I haven't seen a Morrigan pick for Tings in a little while, but, maybe trying to adapt to some of what the other teams are doing. Not that they need to, but trying out some different styles. The Morrigan certainly a good look, especially if you want to make your team harder to kill. Now, Susano has taken over things this weekend, has looked fantastic for a handful of junglers. Kyrmi learned the hard way, and the Valkyries did just yesterday how good Susano looks at the moment. And so if you're looking purely at draft picks and pressure, and not the team who's playing them just yet, the Valkyries have a fantastic first 3 picks to maybe run some pressure at the Kings.
Yeah, I like this Valks draft a lot, especially the Susano now locked in. Puts a lot of pressure on map, and it deals well with the Khepri, and that ultimate, the Typhoon, is just massive AoE damage. It really does chunk through some of these team fights. It makes it difficult for the Khepri to decide who he's going to get hit with the Scarab's Blessing, and it also puts a timer on your Scarab's Blessing. If you are most likely going to get hit by it as well as Khepri, considering how you're forced to position, to utilize your passive, to be in range to find those Scarab's Blessings, which means you need to apply it before the ultimate from Susano is tossed out. If you get knocked up as well, it's pretty likely that one of your allies is going to die before you touch the ground and are capable of saving them. So this pick, I think, will likely find some pretty decent value, but it's a bit on the slow side as well. I mean, even in the previous set where Lasper has a phenomenal performance in both games, it had taken him about 8-9 minutes to get to the point where he was able to make those aggressive plays on his own. And the Valkyries strike me as a team that really want to play through the early to find their lead. Won't be up to Kyrmi this time. Once you take it to level 5, sure, get your Susano involved, but it's more so about the itemization, and you're going to need 2 or 3.
Here could be a strong look for the Valkyries here. Been a lot of Bellona for Aquarius, a couple Hades games, a Mulan game. So likes the mobility and the initiation factor. Tyr has both of those things in spades as far as walking at the Camelot Kings. So what can the Camelot Kings do to avoid that? Well, you got the Khepri res, as we mentioned. Potentially a second if that's where BigManTingz wants to go with some of his transformations. Still in need of some magical damage, though, you'd think. Ymir can supply a little bit. But Myth, there's no Vulcan, there's no Yu Huang, there's no Poseidon. That's a lot of what BennyQ has wanted to play over the last handful of games. If you're going magical damage, it's going to have to be something a bit different.
Yeah, I wonder. Maybe you're in a position where BennyQ could go back towards one of his old picks, like earlier on in the phase. He was one of, if not the only guys in the league to play Guardians in mid.
He played Atlas.
Played
4 or
Atlas.
5 games ago.
Played Terra back in the day as well.
I want to see the Ra.
Yeah, I mean,
BennyQ making waves on Ra. At the beginning of
those
season
were
9.
sick clips. I mean, for sure. Do you want to play Ra into Lancelot,
No.
Guan Yu,
No.
and Ishtar?
No.
Or even the Morrigan to a certain extent? Absolutely not. I agree. Not the Ra.
Yeah, that was more of a like I just want to see that BennyQ again.
Hey, what happened to that guy, you know?
I was also, I'm going to give myself a little credit. I said Ra before Lancelot and Guan Yu were locked in.
Yep, for
Still
sure.
maybe not great against a couple of the other picks, but yeah, now the Valkyrie's in a tough spot where mobility
Ooh, don't
going to
love
be
that.
important. Your initial snap reaction wasn't fantastic, though, to the Agni hover. Now you're going to have to give a reaction because for the first time this phase, Agni's going to get played by the Valhalla Valkyries by any team here in the SPL.
Yeah, Agni telegraphs his damage really hard, and because Rainfire is disjointed into 3 abilities, essentially you get 3 charges of that ultimate, it means that each individual charge does less than a standard ult, which gives time over to the Khepri to really decide whether or not he wants to Scarab's Blessing whoever's receiving all that DPS, or if it's on the Morrigan, gives her an opportunity to transform and get out of some of those situations. Agni is not a bad blanket pick. It's just, I don't think Agni necessarily makes the best use of the itemization as it currently stands. It's very difficult for him to escape some of these situations. Lancelot and Guan, you're going to have a field day chasing this guy down, to be certain. And the primary escape of Agni being that dash up against a Lancelot who creates a cripple field the size of a lane means that you are really, really going to struggle to survive a lot of those early jungle ganks. And Agni with a lead is a scary thing. But getting a lead on Agni does not happen often.
Let's talk about jungle a little bit, because we know what Susano does. We actually talked about it in our cast just previously with the bolts and the scarabs. Needs a little bit of time once you get a couple items online, especially right now with only Aegis or beads being available to be purchased at a time. Beads tend to be the choice, and so Susano, a bit of an easier time later on in the game once you get those items online. At finishing off the backliners. Haven't seen Lancelot, though, Myth, if we're pivoting to the other side of the jungle. Fallen off a bit, but maybe still viable here for CaptainTwig.
Yeah, I think Lancelot is still very strong. He's one of the fastest paced junglers in the game, in that once you take over to level 3 and you've got access to the entirety of your standard kit, barring the ultimate, you are a massive threat on the map. Your DPS is incredibly high. You've got great chase down potential. You've got a little bit of displacement to lock people down once you do rotate into the lane, be it in the horse stance with the root or even in the base stance with that shield bash. Makes it very hard for you to escape some of his fights. The only issue that I'd had with Lancelot when we saw him a little bit more so in the meta was it was very difficult for Lancelot in the latest portions of the game to finish their kills. And in the latest portion of the game, for the most part, junglers have to act as a solo agent. Yeah. We saw very often Lancelot would drop someone down to 5% HP or 1 more auto attack is all it takes. But because of how his kit works, being so front-loaded in the damage, you can drop him low, but good luck chasing him out.
Camelot Kings hoping to close the gap with the top 2 here in the SPL, and the Valhalla Valkyries trying to edge their way closer to the top 6. Important for very different reasons. Camelot Kings, Valhalla Valkyries, game number 1 with J-Mac and Trelly.
Yeah, thank you so much. Importance is the name of the game for both of these teams in this set specifically. As mentioned, the Camelot Kings want to close up that gap between the 2nd and 3rd spot. The Valkyries want to claw their way out of the bottom 2, kind of a portion that's been reserved for them and the Scarabs over the course of time. It's been so hard and so very not often. I can't think of the word on that I'm trying to look for. Hasn't been very often where the Valkyries and the Scarabs haven't been in that bottom 2, bottom 3 position, but the Valkyries want to try and change that up now. It's J-Mac, Trelly, and Doug here in game number 1. This might be one of the first times in a little while, Trevor, we haven't seen a real hard invade by the supports, and it's just Gam over here trying to disrupt genetics.
Yeah, this is just the old steal the mini strap, but I want to see the old run around. Actually, genetics got one. Will he be able to get the next one? Just going to hog the whole buff. Unfortunately, for Netrioid, not going to be able to get the XP for that purple, but at least going to get red and support, so should be just fine in that regard. But yeah, I think the big set for the Valkyries, right? This is, if you want to keep your hopes of getting out of that bottom 2 alive, a win here would be pretty crucial, right? You want to make sure that you're trying to edge yourself away from the Solar Scarabs, and in this case, I suppose, catch up to the Bolts, who just got their own win today. And up against the Camelot Kings, not going to be an easy task ever for any team, to try and take down. They've been looking real solid. I think I like the switch up here for CaptainTwig. I think his jungle picks have been a bit different recently. Like the Dodge I didn't think was working too well, but the Lancelot and the Morrigan, the double Lancelot combo, can be extremely powerful if used correctly.
Maybe see some of that into practice now. Nope, CaptainTwig instead uses it. His abilities to clear up the wave and help BigManTingz out in that regard. But I think kind of talking about the difference in the standings and kind of those positions there. I mean, Camelot Kings, they're 2 games away from being in that top 2 spot, where it's on the opposite side, it's 3 games and 3 sets for the Valkyries to break into the top 6. And again, finding 2 wins at the top isn't always the hardest thing to do, isn't always the biggest deal. The problem is not just finding 3 set wins for the Valkyries, but finding 3 set wins more than the next 2 teams that are up there, being the Tartar Titans and at least for the Olympus Bolts as well. So it's a hard ask for the Valkyries to be able to get that far up, but every single set matters. They can find one here against the Kings, be a great start to that streak.
Yeah, and I think that most teams have the mindset, as we do see BMT going for a bit of a wraparound here, looking for Kyrmi. Kyrmi's got the closed gap. I think the blink will be coming up as well, so no more kills. There's not enough damage this early on. I don't think Lancelot really is online until that ultimate comes through. Same with the Morrigan. But I don't think these teams have taken that much into consideration, right? You can't hope for other teams to lose. You just got to make sure that your team wins, and that's got to be the mindset here. Talking about BennyQ on the Agni, a pick. First time seeing in this phase. With the Book of Thoth changes, I actually think Agni is pretty solid at the moment, but BennyQ not really looking towards the Book of Thoth, more so focused on Warlocks trying to survive the dive that CaptainTwig and BMT are more than certainly going to be putting his way once level 5 comes through. We really are going to see the damage come online from BennyQ eventually, and Agni, I think, bit slept on, but also, Mifflin highlighted it, and it is still true. Very easy to dive. That dash doesn't get you too far.
Yeah, it's a very fast dash, but doesn't go quite the distance you would maybe hope there. And also something that, Mifflin kind of touched on, and I'll kind of pose towards you, is his combo potential. I mean, you go in, you get a bomb stun followed to another bomb, you can flame wave stun into a bomb. But the problem that you run into in a situation like this up against a god like a Khepri, I mean, how difficult does that make it then for BennyQ to be able to find those last hits, to be able to find that damage that he needs in order to get these kills onto the Kings?
I mean, I would argue Agni is almost better in a situation like that because, when there's a big Kraken, it's very telegraphed and okay, I'm going to res that Kraken and then ultimate's down. Agni has much more damage to spread out throughout the team fight. It is easier to time the res, of course, but that means once one bomb's down and the res is gone, you still have more damage to throw out. So it's just one of those situations BennyQ has to play to his best of his abilities. Aquarius, as Lawbringer active, is going to have to go far.
Will go. Ran into by CaptainTwig. Not very far for him to go. A dash to the tower. And one more auto. CaptainTwig strikes first blood for the Camelot Kings. And maybe something going on in towards the dual lane. Gamma finds a double freeze. Netrioid does have some decent sustain towards himself. A pull in by Genetics on towards Gamma. The spread shot thrown out to get a little bit of extra damage. But at least for now, for the Camelot Kings, first blood to their name.
and almost 1,000 gold in the lead just off of it.
Yeah, and that's typical Kings play for you. You look up and you say, okay, that was just one kill, couldn't be that bad. Then you realize the rest of the map has been getting farmed as well. I was taking a look at the mid lane XP, and you can see that BennyQ was hitting level 6 a little bit before BMT, but I think that's more so just because CaptainTwig's been hanging around the mid lane a little bit as well. Went over to right lane, was able to grab first blood for himself, but just hovering for a bit to grab some extra XP in that regard. But because that Crusher's finished up, not only does that make CaptainTwig's fight a lot stronger, but also BMT has a good transformation. It's going to be doing a ton of damage. Finally, Kyrmi was able to finish up that first mace item. It's going to be the Brawler's Beat Stick trying to deal with some of the healing that Variety is going to be cooking up with this Guan Yu. And that really does start to add up more towards the team fight phase of the game, where Guan Yu is just spamming that ability, making sure the rest of the team is healed up. I like the pickup there from Kyrmi.
Yeah, some anti-heal for him. Maybe some down the road for BennyQ as well if he wants to go towards a Divine Ruin. But on the opposite side, thought maybe we'd see something up against Kyrmi, but no, back away. Opposite side for the Camelot Kings, BigManTingz on the Morrigan. Talked about the transformation combo that she can run with CaptainTwig, running the double Lancelot, but it seems that he has at least maybe a couple of different options outside of just that Lancelot. I mean, you feel that potential to maybe see even the transformation into the Susano as the game goes a little bit further in?
Yeah, we definitely could. I think Susano's better for just 100 to 0 attempts when you know you've got a decent fight in the jungle, but Lancelot is such a get in and good out style of character. I mean, that joust field can just take you across the map, you know, if you use it correctly, and it's a good get out of jail free card as well. For my money, I think the double dive is just so much better with the Lance, but you're right. As the game goes on, Kyrmi is definitely going to be a pretty solid transformation as well if you're trying to look for that fight. But it looks like BennyQ was able to finish up that Warlock staff, and that's going to be nice when you start getting those stacks online. The percent damage really does start to add up once that stacking is done. But up until that point, we see that the duo lane's been struggling a bit from the Camelot Kings. Gamma and Wowy stealing away that purple buff, and Kyrmi getting caught out in the jungle. Going to take a little bit of poke, but it should be just fine.
Yeah, eats a combo in from CaptainTwig and a fadeaway Dark Omen from BigManTingz, but he'll be just fine to continue out. Aquarius pushes Variety back, but it was an invade by Variety and CaptainTwig to the back Harpy camps of the Valhalla Valkyries, and this is where so much of that gold gap starts really amounting there. As Aquarius is just down the 1 level against Variety, but Kyrmi's down 2 to CaptainTwig, and it's because of plays like that. I mean, constant stripping away of the jungle, of any of the farm that the Valkyries have. I mean, we're looking at almost another minute before Kyrmi can even try and go back to get those camps.
And that's the thing. Your blue buff does belong to your soul laner, of course, but the jungle is almost always sapping that farm as well, sharing it with you. So taking it away from Aquarius, yeah, that hurts, but you're also taking that farm away from Kyrmi, which CaptainTwig and Variety have been able to get. And that's going to help out the fight as well. I think the Valks, they have to try and play through this duo lane. That's the only lane at the moment that I see some kill potential. I mean, Genetics and Netrioid, maybe it's because it's a Khepri, they don't value fighting over on that side of the map, but have been getting pushed in by a Ymir and a Cupid, which you probably should be. I don't imagine Ishtar and Khepri are going to be out pressuring anytime soon. But that purple buff was invaded before, not going to be this time. Netrioid will be able to confirm that for himself over in this duo lane, so that'll help out a bit. But this does seem like if Kyrmi wants to get active and wants to look for a fight, this would be the time to do it over on this side of the map, over on the left, because Aquarius hasn't really been able to poke out Variety too much. It's a very difficult matchup as is. Tier into Guan Yu, lots of knock-up immunity built into the kit for Guan, so you're not finding Fearlesses too often.
No, maybe a pick on a Gamma for the Kings, though. Wall keeps Netrioid away for the time being, but Genetics is there for the grab right after. CaptainTwig on the way, having his own fight in the jungle. And as soon as Gamma's ultimate fades away, the sun is there, but a good field to love will stop one, but all the while, CaptainTwig took the 1v1 solo match up against Kyrmi and ends up winning in that regard. So not the kill the Kings were necessarily hoping for, but definitely one they'll take.
Yeah, Susano does not like that 1v1, especially this early on where CaptainTwig's got a second point into that ultimate, and Kyrmi is only level 8, doesn't have access to the level 2 Typhoon. Just didn't really have the DPS to try and match what CaptainTwig was doing, and also, Crusher's just better than Brawlers, right? In that situation, when you've got all these abilities to proc it, and Kyrmi's just, you know, has the anti-heal, but it's not going to help you out in a 1v1 versus the Lancelot. Just not a great fight to take, but you could tell just wanted to rotate over and try and help out in that regard. I'm just realizing, was it you and I that was casting the Kings last time? Because once again, Genetics has went for the knockup meditation.
Yeah.
He's not going for the cooldown. We get to see it in action once again. Let's see if he's able to peel his team with that meditation that's going to create some more CC for him.
I think it was, what, twice in that one game that he ended up using it? Maybe a third time he snuck in at the end, so we'll see if he does end up using it a little bit more often this time. All 3 bombs by BennyQ. Now, those are very short cooldowns, I think like 18 to 20 seconds before a bomb ends up coming up, and that's before cooldown is applied, so Benny will get at least one of those back soon. But still using all 3 means that it's going to be a little while before Benny really wants to go for any kind of fight towards the mid. And, you know, talking with Benny in that pregame interview, you know, I kind of asked him, you know, what are his thoughts on going against a team like the Kings to change up your draft. And one of the things he said is, well, we're still kind of playing what we want to play, but it's more so that when it comes to our bans, we're denying them the things that we don't want them to play up against. And it feels like even after maybe even the tweet that he put out on Twitter yesterday talking about the Susano, I think this pick may have been influenced a little bit by their previous matchups they've been having against the Leviathans.
Yeah, no doubt. The Susano is powerful at the moment, but I think it has to be in a situation. You have to put Susano in a position where he can hard carry a game away, and this is not the great start you're looking for, especially up against a Lancelot who's 2-0, has 2 levels on you. Kyrmi, you know, not after the greatest start, but still has some kill potential, especially on the BMT. If an Erendite comes through, I imagine the Morrigan could be an opportunity to find some aggression. Gamma can take a little bit of damage. You could tell the target was supposed to be BennyQ, but now might be a Pyromancer pull. Aquarius very much onto this, and Kyrmi's sitting by as well. Has the blink, and Aquarius is going to go in first.
Does find variety. Pulls the Kings off the Pyromancer, but now Gamma is out of position. BigManTingz transforms into Lancelot of his own. Wall completely stops off one horse, but unfortunately for Gamma, CaptainTwig was on the other side of that wall. One more hit.
What?
They just left Gamma alone. He's going to make it out. No, he will not. BigManTingz finds the fadeaway Dark Omen. Thought for a moment this Ymir had somehow made it out, but it's a 2-for-none trade. Camelot Kings up 4-0.
All right, I'm going to give Gamma credit for that wall, but let's be honest, that wall was up for a good bit. I think BMT just hasn't played the Lancelot in a while and forgot what walls do to that joust field. It just rides into it. BennyQ's on the way, though. Could go for the bomb stun over the wall and does have some damage. The Camelot Kings are able to wait that one out. They're going to put 4 kills on the board total. And now that grab that Pyromancer as well. That's going to net them a 3K gold lead as well as 3K experience. Looking pretty solid currently for the Kings, and they get to spread out their kills evenly. Variety's going to grab 1 BMT, and CaptainTwig already had those 2.
Just assists for the duo lane at the time being, but haven't really had duo leave this lane very much just yet. Netrioid and Wowy have been sticking to their farm on the side of the map, but already going for 2 different build paths here. Netrioid going in towards the crit, which is something we've been seeing kind of sprinkle its way in to the Hunter meta. Wowy still sticking more so with the standard. Devour's Gauntlets into at least the Light Blade tree, finishing up a couple of items within there. How do you kind of feel about the crit build into maybe the team composition that the Valkyries have drafted up here? I'll ask you that maybe after this little skirmish. CaptainTwig shoved against the wall. A lot of damage through. Kyrmi pulls him right back in. And the Valkyries are finally on the board for themselves, getting a pick on the jungler.
Yeah, that's a beautiful wall, but what are the Valks going to do after? Aquarius is here. You might as well look to try and start another fight. Looks like the Fury is going to be the call, but here comes the rest of the team. BennyQ actually playing zone duty on a bit, and the Fury's getting low.
Fury almost down. Ultimate in from Netrioid to pull the Fury back towards their side, and a fight on towards Kyrmi and Benny. The Valkyries do manage to grab the gold Fury, and a field to level lock in Netrioid, and a heart bomb to take him down. BigManTingz goes in, finds the stun, only up against Gamma, and the joust field in by BigManTingz. He'll slam into the back of BennyQ, and that's now a double kill for BigManTingz. Maybe a little bit more after the D-transform. No, he gets shoved back by Aquarius, and a revive by Genetics just in time to get the mid laner out of danger. It's 2 kills for the Camelot Kings, but 1 in a Fury for the Valkyries.
I got to give Genetics credit on that one. I really thought he was going to just ult Netrioid, but I guess realized BMT could go for the dive, and the dive was the only way that fight could have went their way. The Valks are able to confirm the Fury, but Genetics holds that Scarab's Blessing, says goodbye to the ADC, and saves BMT, who's now got a 3-0 bounty on his head. Definitely the smart call in that regard. And I think the gold lead's still going to be in their favor, but the Valks were able to close it up a little bit with that pick on to CaptainTwig. You'd love to see Kyrmi get rolling, and of course now Wowy's got a kill under his belt as well. So playing through that duo lane, I still think is the call, right? If you're looking for getting some kills, Wowy's your man. I mean, this Cupid has been looking insane. It's like Wowy's favorite god, and he's off to a 1-0 start. I mean, I'm looking to facilitate this Cupid as much as possible if I'm Kyrmi.
So far, Wowy's only been able to get involved in the one fight on his side of the map, but I think you're right, just to highlight the strength of the pick in general, but also the fact of how much Wowy likes playing this god. I mean, he was playing it before it ever really became part of the meta. And now that it is, it's become a staple into his compositions, into his draft once again. Netrioid in danger. Fields of Love not open, but probably isn't even going to be necessary. The damage from Kyrmi, just too much now on the Susano. 2.5 items deep, plus the backup from Wowy. A third kill for the Valkyries, and an important one to get themselves back in.
Yeah, definitely going to be a smart call. I'm glad that Kyrmi realized fighting through Wowy, looking for Netrioid is going to be the right play. Variety, however, did teleport over to left lane just to cover up that wave. In the meantime, try and grab some farm and make sure more so that the farm doesn't get denied to that tower. But I think that's going to be it for a bit. I mean, Kyrmi used the ultimate there to confirm that kill on the Netrioid. Wow, he's going to be fine. Just Sudden Lane has the Fields of Love available if anyone comes over for a gank, but doesn't really need to use it anytime soon. Actually, a 4-man grouping here from the Kings. I was wondering, tower going to be looked at? No, blinking on a BennyQ. Now the tower is going to be the call. Push away that Agni and put some gold in your pocket. The Camelot Kings going to group up in mid for that tower.
Now, I know with the situation with the Beads and Aegis relics, how you can only pick up one or the other has kind of diversified a few of the pickups. We've seen more often than not the shells coming through for the mid laners and for the carries. But Netrioid has gone for a Bracer, which is what caught my eye immediately, taking a peek over there. How do you feel about a Bracer in general, but Bracer being picked up as opposed to something maybe like the shell or maybe like the sprint? Kyrmi will be out for now. Should be fine. No further fight from there. But how do you kind of feel about this Bracer for Netrioid?
I'm really surprised that CaptainTwig didn't ult that one, but I think the Bracer just works out. I mean, it's not the best option to try and survive, but it's going to give you some extra damage. It's going to act as a pseudo sprint with the movement speed. And now, good to see it in action possibly. Netrioid still does have it available. The vision, also quite strong. Ult from Netrioid, off the mark. You could tell BMT was trying to close gap there with the invis, but wasn't quite fast enough. Wasn't able to look for anything else. The Bracer did get dropped over on left, so maybe a tier 2 tower, but you can see Variety was trying to hunt in the jungle as well. The Camelot Kings really splitting up their mat pressure here.
Camelot Kings able to put some pressure on the mid tier 1 earlier, took that one. Now put some pressure on the mid, or on the left side tier 1 tower, put it down to about 30% HP. But thanks to the fact that Ymir exists, and Ymir wall is pretty good, means that they won't be able to take that one down, at least for the time being. Instead, Aquarius put some pressure now on the tier 1 on right side for his team to try and keep the Valkyries afloat. And they're doing a good job of staying afloat right now. That 3K gold lead that the Kings built up earlier has since plateaued down to about that 2,500. Hasn't really expanded much more beyond there. Nice and easy combo potential.
Wow.
The revive at the last moment for Genetics to keep his mid laner alive. Solid rotation from the support. And a good transform, at least out of the mid laner go there, but just in time for the save.
Yeah, Kyrmi aggressive on the Susano pick, and I think that's the way you have to play it. Almost always going to win that 1v1 versus BMT. It's just a hard fight to ever go to. If the Morrigan is not initiating a 1v1 where she's coming from stealth, one-shotting you, putting the Dark Omen, polyshot, then transforming, it is very difficult to try and win a fight in that situation. And Kyrmi recognized that immediately, put the pressure onto BMT. Looks like Aquarius too little too late. No way, they're feeling confident enough to pull this Fire Giant. They're going to try. You can see the Valks, they're on Fury right now. It's just Aquarius and Gamma.
Well, BennyQ on the way, and maybe it's just a bait to pull one person out and catch him out of position.
Well, now it's just good for the Valks.
Valkyries get a Primal Fury. Fire Giant started again. Genetics tanking it up while Netrioid deals the DPS. Does have double crit, which makes it a little bit faster to shred, but does not seem the Kings are going to commit to it. Instead, it was just that Pyromancer for themselves earlier on. And maybe a fight now that the Valkyries are starting to rally themselves around. CaptainTwig nowhere near this team fight. As we start getting ready to move in towards this late game, that Fire Giant will be a little bit more up and available to these teams, but definitely a risky call by the Kings. Glad to see that they didn't fully commit to it.
I mean, I liked it from the Valkyries, though. I mean, it was just Wowy and Kyrmi able to pull that Fury, and then they're like, hey, just let us know. Like, is the Fire Giant actually being done? And Gamma and Aqua walked up and like, not really. Like, there's not that too much. And they're like, all right, we're not dropping it then. We'll just get Primal Fury, and then we'll rotate over. If the Kings commit to that call, yeah, maybe that Primal Fury is a bad idea, but I think they were worried about BennyQ's burst, the amount of just frustration that trying to confirm a Fire Giant with a tier running around this tanky as Aquarius could be. So they had to call it off, and then the Primal Fury goes down for absolute free. So huge for the Valks there. You could tell they're trying to rotate over and stop their tier 1 from going down. Are they going to look for the engagement after the fact, though? That's the question, because the Camelot Kings still very strong in a 5v5 situation.
And one of the things that the Valks have to continuously contest with against a team like the Kings is that macro play, that farm game, where the Kings won't necessarily fight a whole lot. They're not going to get a whole lot of kills. They might TKO somebody, but then once they've sent somebody back to base, they're going to grab a blue buff. They're going to grab a back Harpy camp. They might steal your Greater Scorpion. So I got to give props to the Valkyries, who, at least in the past, have been a team to struggle with that. We do find a double stun by Variety onto the tank. Now BennyQ losing a lot of his health to CaptainTwig, but it's a pullback in. Joust field from CaptainTwig, but he goes the wrong direction. And Wowy punishes him. And now it's the first kill of the team fight, going to the Valkyries instead. Bomb just off the mark by BennyQ. Netrioid flinging those autos out as fast as he can. But now it's some threat onto the tier 1 tower. Not much the Kings can do to stick around. A pull onto Variety.
Wow.
And a wall to block off his path. Nowhere to go as he slams in. And a heart bomb, not quite enough to get the kill. And as a Duncan, the Lawbringer is good, but a Phantom Shell by the Kings will make sure to keep Variety alive.
That meditation got popped from Genetics, just making sure the rest of the team is sustained. I can't imagine Fire Giants to call with these low health bars, and it's not the Valhalla Valkyries. More focused on getting some farm in that situation. Yeah, CaptainTwig bit off a little bit more than he could chew there. I guess went a little bit too far. Possibly was hoping on the ult from Genetics, but the range was not there. And once again, can Kyrmi hear this? I think he can. He's stepping up so low, though. Doesn't have access to Typhoon, has the blink and the beads. It's at the BMT to try and play zone. Dude, this Fury will go down if Kyrmi doesn't get in here. Gamma's too far away.
Hard not to hear it with those Ishtar autos. Those
there he
things
goes.
Are very loud. Kyrmi is there, and well, Kyrmi is out. Now it's up to BennyQ to steal it, and
There
he
it
does
is.
do so. The Camelot Kings lose out on the fire, and they might just lose BigManTingz if the Valkyries can get in there fast enough. Bomb does connect. Aquarius with the push. The Camelot Kings have lost the Fury. They've lost their mid laner. And a lot more after that, just to get themselves out. It was actually the explosion of the noxious fumes that steal that Fire Giant away. The Valkyries and BennyQ got to be feeling great with that.
I mean, I got to give props to Kyrmi on that one. That Fire Giant 100% gets burned before the Valks even show up if Kyrmi doesn't blink in and stall as much as possible. It was just the small hesitation there from the Kings to say, wait, we got to kill this Susano. We don't know if his ult's up. We don't know what he's got here. And now it looks like CaptainTwig trying to take the 1v1. The Joust field will land, but Kyrmi not too afraid here.
Typhoon hits, but that's now 2 ultimates used to take down Kyrmi, who lives through. Bomb off the mark. CaptainTwig still on the run. There are 3 chasing him out. And he might just be able to get away. His cooldown is back up with the horse. Doesn't quite lose out on it. And jumps off the horse afterwards. Aquarius should be able to find the kill here. CaptainTwig just delaying as long as he can. That dash doesn't get him too
Where's the
far.
horse?
Needs the horse cooldown back up again. But Aquarius is hot on his heels with a Fearless to take him down.
Yeah, the horse did not come back up there. Now the gold lead certainly in favor of the Valhalla Valkyries. 5 strong with the Fire Giant. Only about 2K thus far, but it will shrink up. I mean, I guess balloon out would be the phrase in this case, as long as these tier 2 towers go down. You can tell the Camelot Kings are not in position to defend, actually grouped up over in the right jungle, possibly just looking for that tier 2 over on right and letting the rest go. But it looks like the Greater Scorpion was the call there, so get some enhanced buffs and then bunker down underneath the Phoenix. Remember, this is still a very early Fire Giant. No one is level 20, so tanking up these Phoenixes, not going to be easy for Gamma. I mean, the tank items are just not there. You have Gauntlet of Thieves and Mail of Renewal besides that. Once that breastplate gets finished, maybe you're looking a little bit better to try and tank, but you don't want Aquarius to do it. He wants to be out of combat to try and blink in and start fights, that sort of thing. So the Valhalla Valkyries backing up, going to get a few power spikes underneath their belt. And this is all off of a questionable play there from the Kings. I mean, they definitely had decent shred on Fire Giant, but certainly not enough to burn it that quickly. And again, props to Kyrmi for going in and just displacing that Fire Giant, stalling long enough for BennyQ to walk up and get the steal. The Valks are in the driver's seat for now.
And the Valks, now with their first lead of the game, 2K in their favor with 1 tower left standing on the opposite side of the map. For them to take away that tier 2 in mid. Meanwhile, all 3 tier 2s of the Valkyries still standing up for the Camelot Kings to maybe try and bat down. And with Oni Fury spawning in, could be a good point of contention for the Valkyries. But with none of the Kings on the map, seems the Valkyries are kind of questioning what's going on. You know, we haven't seen the Kings in a while. Stepping over a ward now are all the Valks. The Kings know that they're here. They spotted Netrioid, but I don't know if they know that the rest of the Kings are hiding behind the wall. It's going to be a pincer maneuver in and a bloodbath to be had. Variety goes up onto the cavalry. Kyrmi in danger, loses a lot of his HP, but will still be fine. Fields of Love drops down and a charge in by CaptainTwig. BennyQ, the first casualty of the fight with Variety having the res on his side. BigManTingz sneaking around in stealth, but wants to go back. Gets the beads away from Wowy. Kyrmi teleports out, but CaptainTwig slammed against the wall, and Wowy makes it a 1-for-1.
Be the trade, but Gamma might be able to find a clutch wall here, and Aquarius still has that Lawbringer to try and slow down the Camelot Kings. The wall not going to be here, and the Oni Fury seems to be taking the Valhalla Valkyries' attention. At least some vision down here, so the Valks will know if the Camelot Kings want to step up and try and mount defense. With low health bars and the fact that the ultimates are not quite available except for varieties, looks like that Oni Fury is going to go down with relative ease. Once again, I mean, that seemed like a decent fight for the Camelot Kings, but I think CaptainTwig a little bit too far. No ultimates available at that point, so your Lancelot is pretty difficult to try and get in, get out, especially with the build that Twigs went for, just full DPS so far. But besides that, I mean, that could have been a lot worse, right? The Valks split up. Netrioid seemed like he wanted to run back to base, possibly as bait. And then the rest of the Camelot Kings were there to try and clean up, get the pick on a BennyQ, and that Fire Giant has completely wore off. It's going to spawn back in here in 30 seconds. And I imagine the Valhalla Valkyries want to get some vision down on that side of the map, just in preparation for the possible fight that will ensue. Relic's not looking great for either team, so wouldn't be surprised if we're stalling out for at least another minute or so, J-Mac.
I mean, that fight, I was expecting 3 to 4 people to go down.
Yep.
Whether it was a split between the two teams or all onto one, the fact that 5 people unknowingly walked into a full mass of 4 from the Kings. But now it's the Valkyries who have set up around the fire. Gonna spawn in just a moment. And the Valkyries with a few players at level 20 have been able to pick up some of their power spikes. Bump a spear for Kyrmi. Wowy has that Death's Embrace, so a lot of sustain to this Cupid. Fire Giant started up. CaptainTwig up on the horse. Variety at the front line. But the Valkyries have disengaged from the fight. Fire Giant, instead they're going for the fight. BigManTingz used the joust to get himself out. Netrioid, though, finds a pick on towards Wowy. And that's a big one to start the fight. Kyrmi is losing the 1v1 or the 2v1 up against it as Variety dismounts to try and take down Kyrmi. He is still running as far as he can. Kyrmi's won a lot of time. In fact, enough to be able to blink out. The palms from BennyQ not quite hitting home. Genetics pushed back, shoved into a palm. But the Camelot Kings are fine with their 1 kill they found.
You'd say that, but I bet you the Camelot Kings would love to get some more. That is the smart call. They're not going to make the same mistake twice, even with a little bit of a wand fight there with Wowy being down, not feeling confident enough to go for that Fire Giant. I imagine if the first Fire Giant didn't go as it did, the Camelot Kings might even go for a pull in that situation. But that could have been a lot worse there for the Valks. Kyrmi with the juke shoes, barely able to blink out of danger. You could see Variety was just playing ring around the rosy there on one of the pillars, trying to catch out Kyrmi. And already there was going to be a bit of a wraparound, but that was spot outed immediately. Camelot Kings are charging forward. They still have the 1 minute advantage for, I'd say, 10 more seconds before Wowy can join back in this fight.
Bomb stun hits 2, but no follow-up after from Benny. Aquarius pushing Netrioid out of the team fight as Gamma is dealing with Variety. Double stun once again from Benny as Aquarius tries to dash his way out. But now Wowy has rejoined the fight, and that means there's some sustain on the board for the Valkyries to get back in, but sustain is also there for the Camelot Kings by way of Variety.
Yeah, so it's going to be a full-on reset for the time being, but now the Valks are going to charge forward. Kyrmi's without relics for another 80 or so seconds, but CaptainTwig also lost the beads in that situation, so not looking too worse for wear. I don't imagine that the Camelot Kings want to go in just yet until these ultimates are back off cooldown. Genetics get Scarab's Blessing in a couple seconds, and then Variety, a couple more heals, should get access to Cavalry Charge. With that being the case, the Valks are still in position to go for the pull, but not too anxious to pull it just yet. They're going to sit back and wait to see what the Camelot Kings do here.
Camelot Kings have all the vision around the pit, maybe not directly inside. Variety dashes towards the team because the wall cuts him off, but not a whole lot of burst damage there just yet from BennyQ. Alternate timeline is actually the call for Benny instead of the traditional Pendulum of Ages. So we'll have at least a second chance at life should he go down. The Camelot Kings also have a second chance of their own life on a much shorter cooldown with Genetics.
Yeah, I bet you Genetics would love to back up and finish that Magi's Blessing, but has not had a calm moment for quite some time. So he's going to be sitting on that tier 2 for the rest of this fight at the very least. BennyQ trying to lead with the bomb stuns, but hasn't been able to. Variety actually might be getting stunned here, but CaptainTwig going to the back?
Does find 3 with the ult, but doesn't get a whole lot of damage from it. Variety and Genetics, again, taking the bomb stun from Benny, but there hasn't been a whole lot of follow-up. In fact, Benny's mana bar starting to fall low compared to the rest of the players on the map, as he's sitting only around a third of it. Dash caught the ultimate from Variety, stopped by the wall, and not going to find BennyQ with the stun afterwards. But again, there's just not a whole lot of follow-up that the Valkyries have to try and deal with the Kings. Variety's just getting to walk up for free for all these pokes.
Yeah, that's all it's going to be for now. Gamma looking for another wall here. Will find it on the Variety. A decent dash gets him out of range of that possible freeze coming in from Gamma. But again, it's the Valks with the aggressive stance here. They're looking to make a pull onto this Fire Giant, and they will. Camelot Kings are here, all squatted up on the bracer. Looks like they're just waiting for their moment to go in.
3 ultimates still up for the Kings. All 5 for the Valkyries. BennyQ dashes away from Variety. BigManTingz wrapping around the back. And feels a love drop through. Variety is low. Variety is gone. And BigManTingz to the back line. There's 4 people that get pushed back, but Kyrmi has found the second kill. And BennyQ does get the revive. Immediately dashes back to Genetics. It is 3 for 1 as Kyrmi is the only casualty on the side of the Valhalla Valkyries. The bubble is up. And BigManTingz and Netrioid still live through. But Kyrmi, the only one going down from the Valkyries in that fight.
I cannot believe we just saw an alternate timeline actually save someone. BennyQ is going to be able to help with this DPS on the Fire Giant because of it, but Netrioid isn't ready to give this one up for free. BigManTingz is going in. They're just going to look for Aquarius at the moment, but look, the DPS on the Fire is still going.
Still going through. BennyQ even leaves the Fire for a moment, but not sure he's going to be able to walk back into the ring. BigManTingz and Netrioid still zoning away Aquarius. Aquarius does get taken down by the jolt from Netrioid, but now instantly traded out. Netrioid goes down to Wowy. It's only BMT left, but the Valkyries in no position to push this Fire. They'll have to go back to base.
Yeah, definitely a smart call. BMT with the Magi's Blessing up, just way too scary. No one was going to be able to close gap and try and kill that Morrigan. So that's going to be the call. Full-on retreat while the rest of the Camelot Kings get to spawn in. You're going to have 40 seconds without net and 35 without Aquarius, so it should be just fine in that regard. No teleport to make sure that tier joins the fight early on. But now the Camelot Kings get their chance. Hey, at least Genetics got his bubble. That was what I was worried about. Had tier 2 Magi's for like 10 minutes. Was not able to finish it, but got the Magi's Revenge. That's going to help out with this Khepri trying to be able to get these Scarab's Blessings off. It's so much more difficult when you're getting chain stunned and all these abilities thrown at you. The Magi's is going to help, especially for that ultimate ability. But it looks like the Valks are going to step up here as well. With BMT over on red buff, could be a decent opportunity to try and find a pick. You can see Gamma already at the front line, looking if he can find a nice wall, trying to bait out some of these Phantom Shells that don't even exist at the moment. 18 seconds before Genetics is back up. And the Valks will take the Pyromancer first for free, with no contention here from the Camelot Kings.
A nice consolation prize for all the fighting that went down just earlier. Aquarius is dealing with a Trebuchet, might get some assistance from Kyrmi to maybe help out there. No, Kyrmi's just going to let Aquarius do this all by himself for the time being. But that makes it a 4v5 to group up around. BennyQ still not quite there yet. Will take a moment to rotate in. So Aquarius, the only person not a part of the team fight as of yet. CaptainTwig once again going on his solo hunt. Netrioid dashed in aggressively. Have we seen the fall of him again? A res by Genetics and a heart bomb to drag it back. And that's now 3 people. He's now joined the exclusive Ishtar club.
He wants to be Zapman so bad. I can't believe it. Net, unfortunately, didn't have beads, so didn't even have to waste them, I guess. And, of course, Genetics was there with the Scarab's Blessing, always the veteran support, able to bail his ADC out of some trouble. Going to be missing a couple key cooldowns here are the Camelot Kings, Genetics and Net. No ultimates for the time being in the Valks. That's enough for them to try and pull, but Variety's blanking in onto BennyQ.
BennyQ taking quite a bit of damage, getting a decent bit. Let's stay back, but Kyrmi has found a kill on a CaptainTwig all by his lonesome. And now Variety is stuck against 3. Heart Bomb connects, the stun is good, and Variety is down. The Valkyries are the ones who are playing aggressive. They're the ones who are finding the picks against the Kings. And now that we passed this 30-minute margin quite a while ago, the Valkyries can go for enhanced fire.
I mean, if Genetics doesn't have to use his ultimate there on Netrioid, definitely has it up for CaptainTwig in that 1v1 situation. Doesn't matter too much, though. Looks like the Camelot Kings are going to be giving up on that enhanced fire giant and going to grab the Primal Fury in the process. BMT might go for the tier 2 tower over on left. Actually, no. Going to go for none of these. They realize already the Valks are going for that right side Phoenix. They don't care about the rest. They don't need minions. This is enhanced fire giant. Even without Aquarius, they're feeling just fine. Aquarius should be able to make it, but too little, too late. This Phoenix is gone.
Yeah, not a chance in the world. It stands up. Now, the only thing that has to be completed to actually truly be just like Zem and just like Pandacat is the Kings now have to win even after that mistake. That's the caveat is you dash in, you make the mistake, but your team still wins the game at the end of it. We'll see if Netrioid and the King can rally back. At the moment, they're sitting about 5K gold down, and as you start pushing in, that 4,000 or 5,000 gold doesn't mean nearly as much at this stage of the game. Builds are starting to finish out. Experience has shored itself up to where there's not a whole lot of difference in there. It all comes down to the execution on field. And so far, the Valkyries have been doing everything they can, and have been doing a very good job of doing so. I mean, this is not a position the Valkyries are used to being in, Charlie. Typically, the Valkyries games are over by the 28 to 30 minute mark. So the fact they're able to fight on even ground at the Kings, 34 minutes into the game, impressive stuff by the Valks.
Yeah, and just by the way of these fights going, the Cupid has been able to grab 7 of these kills. I mean, Wowy's been popping off. I said from the beginning, Kyrmi needs to try and play through this duo laner, and Wowy has been able to confirm these kills more often than not. Not the highest on the damage charts, but impactful damage, certainly in favor of Wowy. And now, Aquarius should be able to grab that last tier 2 off the map. And then a possible siege over to the left side Phoenix. Remember, right side bird already down. The minions are pushed up a bit, but eventually fire minions will pour in. The Valks should feel confident, though, being able to split up this fight a bit, go for the 4-1, and look towards this left side bird. I mean, with the minion wave coming in, with EFG on for 2 more minutes at least, you got to imagine the fight is what they're after.
Benny would love to get that bubble off Genetics. He does so. And that's now 70 seconds before the bubble is back.
Alternate timeline is
the
almost
support.
back.
Alternate timeline, which we saw save BennyQ's life earlier on. 10 seconds away from being back up. It saved him once. Can it save him again? CaptainTwig needs some saving. Variety goes to the back line to try and fight against the carries. Doesn't find anyone with the stun, and the Fields of Love will catch out too. BigManTingz, though, has to beads away to get out of that Fields of Love.
Aqua.
Typhoon goes through. Only hits Variety. CaptainTwig able to joust away. And Genetics goes in. Finds the root. Gamma is low. Variety wants to get in there, but it's a 1-for-1 trade. The jungler is down for the Valks, but CaptainTwig is down as well. No junglers alive, and Genetics forced to use the ult on himself with the left side bird going down. The Valkyries move towards mid.
Yeah, I gotta give up that Phoenix, and Aquarius Lawbringers in, trying to catch out BMT from the stealth. It looks like all 3 birds will be going down here. The Camelot Kings rather defend the Titan. Leave the fight another day seems to be the call. But now will the chase go through? I don't think it's possible. Variety doesn't quite have access to that cavalry charge, and the rest of the Valks are just gonna turn tail and run. A 3 Phoenix down situation, J-Mac. Very difficult to try and come back from, especially with no real global presence here from the Camelot Kings. You got teleport on Variety, but besides that, you pretty much have to send someone to defend each one of these waves every time you want to try and step up. Fighting outside of the Phoenix is the only way that you can try and get aggressive. EFG gonna fall off in about 30 seconds or so, and the Valhalla Valkyries are gonna go back, finish up the rest of these builds, and I imagine look towards upgrading relics and possible power potions. That's the position we are in 36 minutes into the game. Notably though, the Camelot Kings, they've got some decent defense opportunities. BMT has been a menace in the backline if he can close gap, if he can get to these carries. It's just been so difficult. I think Gamma and Aquarius have been doing their jobs about as well as you can. Standing in the front line, making sure no one gets to the carries here of the Valks.
Now for BennyQ, alternate timeline off cooldown. Obsidian Shard finished. He didn't even have it. Going to that last team fight and then even upgrading his beads and his meditation. So with the relic roundup kind of going through, by the time that next fire giant comes down, by the time that next fight breaks out, should see all relics up and available for the teams. Nearly everybody full build. CaptainTwig lagging a little bit behind on getting his Magi's and Genetics 1 item back compared to Gamma. For the Valhalla Valkyries, 1 team fight could spell the difference between moving on to game 2 with a win or extending this game a little bit longer. As Aquarius finds the push up against Variety. Not much more to be had from that. But the Valks are trying to set up that offensive spot. Fire Giant set to respawn in just a few seconds.
Yeah, the Valks smart to stall this one out here. That left side fire wave will be pushed up eventually. You can tell the Camelot Kings want to try and fight if possible. CaptainTwig getting burned through.
Oh, the revive just in time. CaptainTwig is out, but BigManTingz is not. CaptainTwig was out, I should say, but now Aquarius slams through the back line. 2 of the Camelot Kings down. Aquarius still gonna make it out as Genetics falls. It's only Variety and Netrioid left to defend up against this one. It's happened before. The Kings have made some miracle defenses, but they're against 5 of the Valkyries. Blink in by Variety, a blink away by everybody else. Netrioid is gone. It's just Aquarius to fight up against Variety. Variety, the last one staying, and he'll watch as the Titan falls and the Valkyries take game 1.
Valhalla Valkyries off the back of that beautiful Fire Giant fight are going to be able to take game 1. You got to imagine the Camelot Kings feel like this one got away from them a bit, right? That Fire Giant play where Kyrmi was able to stall out just a bit, and then the Valks, BennyQ in particular, able to steal that one. And since then, all of the fights have been coming up blue. All of the fights have been coming up in favor of the Valkyries. Like I said, the Camelot Kings got to feel like they made some missteps there.
Yeah, and for a team like the Kings, losing an objective usually isn't kind of the mental breaker that it felt like it was in this one. Ever since that Fire Giant goes down, Valkyries are at worst going even in team fight tryouts, whether it's a 1-for-1, a 2-for-2, or maybe even nobody going out. But for the Valkyries, maybe it just felt like that much more of a confidence booster for them, not only being able to steal that, but then being able to go toe-to-toe with a team like the Kings.
Yeah, I imagine that was probably it. Like, yo, we stole this, now we're online, we can definitely fight again, and it just kept consistently happening. I got to continuously shout out, because it seemed like the carries were getting all the love there. They had all the kills, but Gamma and Aquarius were being absolute menaces. Aquarius was consistently finding those low-health members that were getting out, like CaptainTwig should have been gone, but Aquarius was able to consistently find those fearlesses on that tier.
Valhalla Valkyries start off strong, up 1-0 against the Camelot Kings. Can they keep that trend going? Can they find their win and try and push themselves out of that bottom 2? We'll have to find out in game 2 right after this.
The Valhalla Valkyries take game number 1 over the Camelot Kings. This one contentious. Moments for both teams to capitalize, moments for both teams to find the win. But it's the Valkyries and their team fighting and their composition that are able to overwhelm the Camelot Kings here by the end of game number 1. My goodness. The stage was set. It was simply set during the pregame interviews, during the picks and bans. We wondered if this Valkyries team might be onto something today, and they sure were. Game number 1 to the Valks, 1 game away from knocking off the Camelot Kings. Myth, a hell of a start here for the Valhalla Valkyries. The Camelot Kings, I think, a bit sideways. Didn't quite know how to react to the composition the Valkyries were playing.
Yeah, I think you're right as well to bring up the interview. Clearly a revelation to the rest of the Valkyries who maybe sat down with Benny and said, start trying, because he clearly did here, man. That was an impressive performance from the Agni. The jungler Kyrmi as well, I think, had really just outshone Twig in the jungle. Just a massive difference in just impact on the map.
Boop.
But you gotta talk about team fight presence. Kyrmi's Susano was
happened.
really disruptive with some of those ultimates, Gamma's lockdown potential up against, and there's a failure on me to not even realize this in the initial P's and B's, but Ymir stomps Lancelot. He stomps Guan Yu. Variety and CaptainTwig were struggling to maneuver the map once they hopped on their horses because there was always a wall there waiting for them.
Yep.
Worth talking about Wowy's presence in some of these team fights. Feels like he was allowed to free cast for the most part. The Valhalla Valkyries clearly been cooking something up. But that said, this is a game where the Camelot Kings start off with their standard win condition. It was, I believe, at around the 13-minute mark, 4-0 standard, like 2,000 to 3,000 gold lead. And I thought to myself, well, that's just it. Camelot Kings aren't going to fumble from here, but the tenacity and team fight presence of the Valhalla Valkyries won the day.
Kyrmi looked fantastic on this Susano. I want to shout out Wowy as well because the Cupid ended up tearing through the Camelot Kings at the end of that game. Have to talk about the FG steal, that play from BennyQ. 0, 2, and 10. So he started playing in the objective steal department, but it was really the 1-2 punch of Kyrmi and Wowy in the kills that gave the Valkyries all their momentum moving forward. CaptainTwig at 2, 8, and 5 in this game. So Myth, in the last handful of games, Twig has just not gotten it done up to his and maybe the Kings standards up to this point. 2 and 8 in this game is about 6 and 24 if you consider the 3 games against the Dragons, and now game 1 against the Valhalla Valkyries. Twig has gone 6 and 24 in the last 4 games, and so if you're looking at an area where Twig, hard on himself, I'm sure he knows. Look, it has just not been getting done here in the last few, and so I think Kyrmi leaning into that carry Susano style of pick, a fantastic look for the Valhalla Valkyries. Will they get it again, though? That's the question here for picks and bans for game 2. The Valkyries 1 game in hand. And remember, still so important for the Camelot Kings, who currently 2 games outside of the top 2. Only have the 5 wins, the top 2 teams both with 7. This is a game that kind of catches back up, keeps things interesting towards the end of the phase. You really want to be top 2 going into phase 3 playoffs. And it makes the road to Worlds just so much shorter. Valhalla Valkyries, a chance to break into the top 6, go to playoffs, and maybe make some waves there as well. This would be a great start for them. And maybe making some magic towards the end of phase number 3. Bans starting to roll through, though. The Hades continues to get taken away. The AMC, the Valhalla Valkyries, do not want BMT to grab that pick. Remember, Tingz was on the Morrigan in game number 1. A bit different from what we're used to seeing Tingz play. But the state of the picks and bans forced him onto it. And then a Susano ban, so a bit of respect thrown Kyrmi's way.
Yeah, I think Susano is just too valuable in the current state of things. So taking it off the table removes an easy ultimate that can completely disrupt some of these team fights. Surprised to see this, though, with so many bans tossed towards... 2 bans tossed towards potential mid laners, AMC and CERN, taken off the table by the Valks. I'd expected the Kings to potentially take eyes towards the mid lane. The Morrigan, certainly a great selection. Vulcan as well, still available and can generate a good deal of pressure. In a similar position as what we had seen from like Poseidon recently this week, where it's just Earthshaker, if you're aiming it right, is going to land, and without Aegis, for the most part, going to find some value as well. But instead, Ymir take it for the Camelot Kings. I like what Ymir brings to any team composition. It could dissuade the Valkyries if they so choose to play some of those more spearhead, frontline style compositions like we had seen from the Kings in the last game. So Guan Yu and Lancelot, I think, now with the data of Game 1, probably no longer appetizing to play into this Ymir pick. Instead, a Ratatoskr hovered this high up. Hasn't been too impressive on the Ratatoskr recently, has Kyrmi, but certainly after a performance like he had in the previous game, maybe feeling confident in his ability to go back towards this pick.
Kyrmi's played a lot of Rat as well, and the last 6 is usually the metric we give. Been 4 Rat games in a row. 1 win, 3 losses. One of those KDAs looked decent despite it being a loss, a 10-6 loss to the Solar Scarabs. So we know that Kyrmi can get the kill pressure going. Can you do it the same way? Can you convert that into a win in the same way that the Valks just did in game number 1 on the Susano? Remains to be seen. Now, Twig is going to fall back to one of the standard Twig picks that we've seen in the last handful for the Camelot Kings. Naja has been popular, and this play style for the Kings has been very popular. Naja, Sash, Windfire Wheels into some delete key type ultimate from BigManTingz. Very potent is the combo between Naja and Poseidon.
Not just Naja and Poseidon, but Naja and Ymir as well. The timing of Windfire Wheels and Shards of Ice is very simple. Wait till you hear the first explosion in the air. Then Ymir has time to fully channel his ultimate. Start from there, allow it to fully channel. By the time it pops, it will naturally time up and sync up, rather, with the Windfire Wheels. No Aegis World means you're landing into that damage regardless. So I think a strong pickup for the Kings, and one that has served Twig very, very well. On his most recent matchup against the Bolts with Naja, it looked very good for him. A bit more on the assist column, but he likes to play that more of a facilitator role regardless. So the Kings, very standard aggression across the board. Haven't got a great look at their duo lane just yet. I'm curious to see what Hunter they decide to flank around it. Now with Cabrakan locked in, maybe restricts the Hunter pool for the Kings. Netrioid probably just kind of wants a leap, right? You don't want to have to deal with those walls, and guys with dashes or don't really have any natural way to deal with them.
Yep.
Will essentially restrict that relic selection, or maybe even force an early Phantom Shell.
I love the player-god combo between the Cabrakan and Gamma here. Gamma loves the aggressive style picks. Cabrakan definitely facilitates that. So again, I'm a fan of what the Valhalla Valkyries are drafting here. Also a fan of what the Kings have in their first 3. It's very classic King style, as we've already mentioned. Netrioid had moments in game number 1. That looked all right, but largely bullied by the Valkyries and their ability to W key forward into them. Charybdis would remedy a bit of that. It might not be the worst pick in the world here. Remember, with the beads and the Aegis situation here this weekend, the Kings were the first team to kind of start leaning into that Charybdis on the other side of things. Not only ultimates that can delete their targets, but characters that can be a bit more safe. Charybdis absolutely has that. Now the Valhalla Valkyries, Myth, with their Morrigan, got to remember that there's potential for second Kraken in these team fights as well. BennyQ loves the Poseidon. So already some decent transformation options for the Valks mid.
Turn into a Mulan, you'll find value there. Turn into Ratatoskr, a good amount of just global presence. So I think, yeah, I like the Morrigan pick. Should be able to get you a little bit of pressure. It is worth noting, though, that Naja has got interesting interactions with the Morrigan. Wait for the clone. Wait for her to go into that stealth. Ring toss the clone, and you found the Morrigan every single time. You're going to always be able to connect with her. So does restrict some of the ability usage that we will see from the Valks mid laner. It's a small interaction, but certainly one you need to be aware of, especially in some of these jungle corridor fights. Now with the Bellona rounding out the draft. Normally when it's the Bellona lock-in for Aqua, it's because there's like a double Hunter composition on the other side, or because there's a Freya that you just want to be able to disarm on cooldown every single time she goes into the pulse. This seems to me to be a pick that, sure, will stop a Charybdis and maybe a Poseidon with the Trident, but more so a selection of him just saying, hey, I like what Bellona plays like, I like what her laning phase is like, I like what I can bring to the team fight regardless of maybe some of these more favorable matchups.
Now, mixed results. If I'm looking back to the solo lane, mixed results for Mulan and Variety specifically. A loss against the Jade Dragons earlier on this weekend, but that was a 4-2-6 KDA, so individually not terrible, but didn't end up getting the win against the Dragons. And then did get a win up against the Olympus Bolts a few weeks ago. 2-1-4 in that game was Variety. Talk to me a bit about pace of game here, Myth. Camelot Kings clearly have great single target, pickup, knockdown style of draft here. Can play around objectives, of course, with the secure that the Poseidon has. Is this an early style of composition from the Kings? Do you expect them to get going right away, or are we buying our time?
I think the Kings can certainly play aggressively in the laning phase. Any one of their lanes should be able to establish pressure pretty consistently. I really like what Poseidon brings into the Morrigan. Poseidon, thanks to that title search passive, should be able to rotate around the map and even leverage a little bit more aggression in those side lanes. It's going to be very difficult for the Morrigan to match some of those rotations without transforming into like a Ratatoskr or something along those lines. Otherwise, you've got a very aggressive duo lane. Anything that has a Ymir, I generally start to favor. But on the other side, the Valkyries, I think they're going to be very reliant on playing through the Cabrakan and the Ishtar. So you want that Cabrakan involved. If he's not in mid, don't fight in mid. You want to play around this Ishtar once she takes over to level 5 and create some space for you to get to that late game team fight where you're Morrigan to become that solo agent, just one-shot you, transform into a frontliner, and continue creating space style of pick.
Now, Myth, I think this speaks volumes to the Valks and the growth that they've had as a team. If you were telling me at the beginning of Season 9, win condition is the Valks duo lane, I'm feeling a bit nervous. But Gamma and Wowy, they've grown. They've put themselves in a position not only to win this game, but beat the Camelot Kings. The Valhalla Valkyries go into Game 2, 1 game in hand. Got to be a reverse sweep from the Camelot Kings. We'll see if they can get it started in Game number 2.
This would be a massive win for the Valhalla Valkyries, not just for themselves, but even for their franchise. I believe this would be the first time in a regular season matchup that the Valkyries have been able to find success over the Camelot Kings. They've got to get through Game 2 to be able to do so here, and what a composition that the Valkyries have drafted. I mean, this is a winning combo that they have run in the past. BennyQ on the Morrigan, Kyrmi on the Ratatoskr has worked so well for them in the past. But Trelly, I think maybe right to highlight over on the desk from Dave is Gamma and Wowy on this Cabrakan, this Ishtar. Something you were calling for in Game 1 was play through this winning duo lane. You think that's still maybe the call here for the Valks in Game 2?
Oh, no, it's not the Whoop It anymore.
Oh, it's not the Whoop It,
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
so you
when-
leave it alone.
No, when it's Ishtar, just no. Leave Wowy on an island. The hard carry potential drops significantly. Joking aside, I do think that you can play through this duo lane. They're very aggressive in the picks. Ishtar and Cabrakan certainly aren't afraid of getting active, but with Gamma, you know, I imagine you got to watch out for Genetics. You have to give him some respect on this Ymir pick because it also just brings a ton of pressure to that lane. I mean, freeze into just the damage that Netrioid's going to be able to dish out on this Charybdis is still pretty scary, especially with Meditation. You essentially have a second health bar, whereas Gamma has went for the Blink. He hasn't quite had the actives to try and play safe. He has to be aggressive and into a Meditation. I don't imagine, unless the junglers rotate through, you're going to find any aggression with that Blink.
Now, obviously we're a bit early in the game to talk about Morrigan transform targets, but I think it's at least a discussion to continue having as the game goes on. Feels that maybe Ratatoskr probably the primary one that we'll be seeing from BennyQ, but do you think that there are other options available? Maybe it's Naja, maybe Poseidon on the opposite side for BennyQ to transform to?
Yeah, I imagine it's Bellona if you're looking for a 1v1, just because the Morrigan does good damage anyways. Just get to that, like the 50% mark, get Dark Omen, and then you're transforming into Bellona, and she's just got a good escape, good engage as well as she's tanky. Or, of course, I think we're going to see this double Ratatoskr throughout the game. I don't think that's going anywhere, right? That global presence, the rotation speed from the Ratatoskr just helps out so much. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw both of those used consistently throughout this game. CaptainTwig, however, does make the rotation over towards the Interceptor. Not really going to throw too much pressure over to Duo, but at least have his presence known, so that goes through. Where it seems like Kyrmi and BennyQ are trying to get aggressive over in mid. At least fighting for both of those mid camps. At the moment, that's the call.
Yeah, back in phase 2, Ratatoskr Morrigan was something that, at least for the Valkyries, they were able to find some wins in individual games. We'll see if they can find one here up against the Camelot Kings. Wowy putting some good damage out with the Ishtar. But similar for Netrioid on the Charybdis, able to get some good poke back against Gamma. Supports taking quite a bit, but you always got to keep in the back of your mind, Genetics with this Meditation. Do you think this time we see him go to the knockup med, or do you think he goes towards the cooldown med this time around?
I mean, I think the cooldown med is always the play unless you have some ability you're saving that knockup med for. So in this case, you know, I don't think that too many of them are that annoying. As long as you have your freeze, you're not worried about the tremors, that sort of thing. Gamma, though, is taking a ton of damage. The carpet, not quite available for Genetics to try and confirm that one, or at least put some more pressure onto the duo lane of the Valks. Clearing the wave just fine, but now purple buff might be looking a little worse for wear. Junglers are not going to rotate over to this, and because Wowy just dashed on the wave, I have to imagine that purple buff definitely going the way of the Camelot Kings. Wowy's just not close enough to go for it, so Genetics will be able to pick that one up. Either way, though, I still think the aggression from the Camelot Kings is warranted. You just have so much safety on Netrioid. He doesn't have to be afraid. He's got the meditation as well, as you said. He's got 2 health bars essentially. He can push up and try and take these auto trades as much as he wants.
And he's able to take away the purple buff. Also with Gamma just being so low from the previous engagement, not really able to get to that purple to save it in time. Level 5 for both the mid laners. No Aegises on the board to deal with the Kraken. So this one's going to come down to if BigManTingz can land a nice Whirlpool Kraken combo. Could potentially delete some of these carries as the game goes a little bit further on. Wowey's got some CC immunity to be able to deal with it. BennyQ's got some transforms. If he can get the snap transform before he can sense the Kraken coming, maybe find Eagles rally out. It's going to come down to a lot of immediate, in-the-moment kind of decision-making for the Valkyries to really play around this Poseidon, which has been making its way up the ban pool just because of the situation of those 2 relics right now between the Beads and Ages. Poseidon's becoming very popular this weekend.
I see what you did there. The ban pool.
Yep.
And he's got the whirlpool. And he's also, that's all I got. That's the only connection I can really
Wearing
make
the
there.
pool skin.
Yeah, that works too. Pool side mayhaps, but I think that's probably the right call. I mean, just trying
I'm
to
glad
play
it was.
through. Yeah, we just made a guess. I had no clue, but I'm glad that the Poseidon has been going up the ranks. It's always fun to watch. The confirmation game during these objectives, always a lot easier especially with the Poseidon on your side. I mean, as history has shown, the Poseidon isn't always that easy confirm on 2 objectives, but should be in theory, right? When you think about going over towards Pyro or going over towards Fire Giant, Gold Fury, that sort of thing, with the Kraken in hand, you imagine that should be at least a little bit of a confidence booster for the Camelot Kings. But as you said earlier, BennyQ could turn into that Pyro or turn into that Poseidon if need be. If you think you need some more confirmation, that sort of thing, you're going to get value out of the Kraken in this matchup because, as you said, there's no Aegis on the right side of the map or the left currently. Either way, though, I imagine the objective play is what both these teams are after. The Camelot Kings playing this a bit safe because they're in a 0-1 situation where they could be, losing. If they just one little misstep, giving the Valks the lead, could be trouble. Whereas the Valks, as we've talked about in times past, not used to being in this situation that often where they're up against a top team like the Camelot Kings. They want to play this as carefully as they can.
They found wins on teams like the Leviathans in phases of past. Weren't able to do so this phase. I believe this is actually their only phase this season where they didn't find a set win up against the Atlantis Leviathans. They were able to take them to 3 at the very least in their first matchup of the phase, but not as successful the second time around. Now we'll see if the Valkyries can maybe find that first big win up against the Camelot Kings. It would be a huge boon to their confidence, and also just to kind of play that spoiler. I mean, we talk about, the bottom teams want to crawl about them too. It's very difficult for them right now, being 3 sets down to the next highest up in that top 6 slot. But being able to kind of force the Kings to have to win more games to get to that top 2, to kind of push the Kings a little bit further away from that top 2. Always a good sign as well, and always got to feel good on that team to kind of play spoiler.
I guess if you pride yourself in those situations,
I do.
Yeah, you better feel it. And I know Mifflin talks about it all the time. It's making their lives miserable. Genetics is going to try and ult away these oracles. We'll get 1, but here comes CaptainTwig with a wraparound.
Transform from Benny immediately into the Ratatoskr, but does he go back in for a second round of fighting? Wowy beads and dash away, use the ultimate, pulls the double stun onto CaptainTwig, but CaptainTwig takes Benny into the sky. Will be a D-transform on landing and a double maw by Netrioid to set up the double kill for CaptainTwig. 2 for the Camelot Kings and make it a 3rd one as Netrioid grabs that one away and puts a 3rd for the board for the Kings.
Yeah, that was a beautiful ultimate by BennyQ. Unfortunate, though. Ulting into 3 wasn't the best situation. And a good rotation in for BigManTingz gives the double kill over to CaptainTwig with 1 ring bounce. And that's always going to feel good, just throwing that one out and getting the credit immediately, whereas Netrioid also was able to pick up 1 kill. That's going to help out with the Dev Gauntlet stacks and give a 2-level lead over to the duo lane. I guess just more importantly over to Netrioid for now. Wow, he's sitting at level 6, whereas BMT is level 9. That is some great farming you love to see from the Camelot Kings. So not the best fight for the Valks. The gold lead's certainly going to be a little bit annoying to try and deal with for the time being, but I don't imagine they're too afraid to try and get active with the good transformation. Again, that fight was solid. It just wasn't able to confirm any of those kills. A lot of low health bars, but the Camelot Kings, they get out scot-free.
Those low health bars make it a little bit nicer for Genetics. Didn't have the upgraded med at the time, but now it does. So you can see it was used during that last little team fight. It makes it a little bit hard to kill. Genetics will just ult BennyQ because he can. CaptainTwig goes in, finds a sash on Gamma. That's about all that he's going to find there. Throws out the ring toss to help clear the wave out, but not much more for CaptainTwig to be had in the mid lane skirmish. But starting off 2-0-1, and this is kind of a pick for CaptainTwig that's been very volatile in the past. You'll see sometimes CaptainTwig has his 5-0, his 5-1 Naja games, and other times see CaptainTwig on the 0-5 Naja, but a great start so far for the jungler of the Kings.
Yeah, BMT taking a lot of damage there. It looked like Gamma wanted to get aggressive with those walls, but was not able to find anything down. BigManTingz doesn't even have the beads up. I was going to say maybe didn't want to waste the beads, but in this case didn't even have them. Still down for 45 more seconds. I think more so because BennyQ didn't have the ultimate and Kyrmi didn't feel confident going in without the beads as well. That's why we didn't see any more aggression off that wall. But Genetics will be able to steal away these offerings. That's going to grant a trebuchet over to the Camelot Kings 9 minutes into the game. I imagine that one will sit by for a bit, but these the Kings are always so minded. You know, no play they go for is uncalculated. They're going to hold on to that until they need to, until that opens up another objective, or at least splits up the map. Going to be going over the left side, so Netrioid can pretty much use that to his own volition. But since it's 9 minutes in, Pyromancer spawns in about 50 seconds or so. And possibly some aggression over there with BMT on the Poseidon. Tons of auto attack damage, good confirm. The build's backing that up as well. Could be an early pull if the Camelot Kings decide to go for it.
And, you know, that kind of goes back to something that not only CaptainTwig, but even Genetics has said about his team, which is, you know, we may not fight a whole lot early on, but whenever we do, it's always for a purpose. There's always a meaning behind that fight, whether it be we want to steal offerings away, or we want to invade a purple, or in this case, a greater scorpion, but maybe a punishment is the double Ratatoskr dunk in. One hits Variety, who ults away. The second one hits CaptainTwig, but there's a Kraken to follow up. The Camelot Kings have started to disengage to the team fight, but now they go right back in. Wall will catch out Gamma, who's then shoved back against the wall again. Auto attacks from CaptainTwig. Doesn't want to use that ult if he doesn't need to, and he won't have to. One more auto after. We'll get a third kill for CaptainTwig.
Okay, so you were just talking about the Camelot Kings never fight for no reason. But that was definitely the Valks fighting for absolutely no reason. I mean, Genetics puts the wall up, says, hey, we're going to invade your Scorpion. Gamma says, I'm going to blink in. I want that Scorpion. Realizes immediately, there's 3 people here. I definitely can't get this Scorpion. And then Kyrmi and BennyQ go to the sky for... I don't get the purpose. And they lost the kill for it, and they lost the Pyromancer as well. It just didn't seem like fighting over that greater Scorpion was that big of a deal. Trying to draw a line in the sand, perhaps, saying you don't get any more free objectives, you don't get to invade our farm. They're still able to. Camelot Kings sitting just fine. CaptainTwig 3-0 on this Naja. Only level 10, but picks up the Sledge. That's going to give some extra tank stats as well after the Windfire Wheels. That's going to help out a bit with the tank stats here for CaptainTwig.
Man, I remember the Sledge era that kind of popped up at one
we're
point.
living in it.
It was there for a while, and then it kind of fell away. 30% crowd control reduction, actually a massive stat that sometimes goes underlooked. We'll see how well it gets put to use here. BigManTingz, Kraken after the beads. He'll live, but that's 2 major tools down for the Camelot Kings. And CaptainTwig, wonder where the rest of his build then goes. I mean, if you're building into Sledge, that's a lot of defense. Building kind of hybrid into offensive style as well. With the Gold Fury pulled half HP. Wowy is here. And that might just be enough between him and Gamma to stop the Kings from continuing this push on the gold.
Yeah, I thought because the Trebuchet was over and left, the Camelot Kings would have felt confident going for it, but because the Valks were waiting for the Trebuchet, didn't really care about it just now. Looks like there was in the call, but Gamma is in a little bit of trouble here, and actually Netrioid might be 2 words, but now Kyrmi's going up into the sky.
BennyQ does transform to the Naja, takes BigManTingz and a dunk in for Kyrmi, and needs a little bit more help from Aqua to pick up the first kill. Wall will block 4 of the 5 Valkyries. It's isolated Aquarius against 3, and he'll be fine. The Sunlight Swords go through from Wowy to get some good CC, and Gamma's just W-king, while Variety has made his way to the backline, fighting against 3 of his own, and winning that fight. Grapple tags Aquarius, forces the Eagles rally out. Wall cuts off BennyQ's path, but BennyQ is just fast enough, and Variety finds the blink into the backline, takes out Aquarius, might just get BennyQ with the help of CaptainTwig, and a grapple nails in and reels back Gamma for Captain to pick up the double.
Yeah, that's going to be a 5-0 Naja on a rampage, and the Camelot Kings, they don't care about the Gold Fury anymore. That Trebuchet is still alive. They're looking for a tier 2 tower 12, 13 minutes into this game, and they should be able to grab it. Wowy doesn't have the ultimate, has beads, but is not going to step up to try and clear that wave. A lot of gold about to be going over to the Camelot Kings. Because those ultimates are down, wouldn't be surprised if they also went for that Gold Fury. CaptainTwig doesn't really have the mana, and it looks like with Variety and Genetics and Netrioid here, all the DPS in the world they need for that Fury is going to be there. Massive swings, and unfortunate for the Valhalla Valkyries. They were able to find 1 kill on the BMT, but that was it. Nothing else. No one else was able to escape. These immobile characters, takes a while to try and run from the enemy jungle back to the safety of your own towers. And at that point, the tier 1 didn't even exist, so Gamma and BennyQ getting caught out. And once again, on a rampage, CaptainTwig, night and day difference from game number 1. Of course, the Lancelot was getting active in the early, but towards late game, Twig was not able to find too much, was almost always getting picked. I think 2 and 6 ends up that game. Complete game changer here for game number 2.
Now that CaptainTwig has started this strong push, the 5-0 and 2 Naja. Up to him and the rest of the team to keep that one going. But because all of the kills are onto CaptainTwig, 1 apiece, at least for Variety and Netrioid, it does make CaptainTwig a very interesting target and a very fruitful one if the Valhalla Valkyries can manage to find a pick against him. They've got to be able to get a pick against CaptainTwig. Right now, it's against Aquarius. Lands inside the Whirlpool, dead on landing. The Camelot Kings reel in their 8th kill of the game. Genetics doesn't find the wall against Kyrmi, able to dash away, but even without a Fire Giant, without anything else, just the push of that Gold Fury in the team fight after, the Kings have taken tier 1 and tier 2 on left, and are poised to take tier 1 and tier 2 on right lane as well.
Yeah, they're getting all the gold they could ever want, right? I mean, this gold lead is climbing. It's not even slowly. I was going to say slowly but surely, but it's quick. It is very fast. The Camelot Kings are just running to farm 8,000 15 minutes in before Fire Giant is even looked at. That is an absurd amount of gold that's already in their pockets. You have to imagine that the Camelot Kings are afraid of nothing here. I mean, they've got good DPS, certainly not enough to go for a Fire Giant contested, but enough to bait in a Fire Giant and look to the fight after the fact. Certainly could be the call. XP as well, you just saw so much in favor of the Kings. I mean, the levels 2 for Variety.
Ooh.
I was going to say, it looks like trying to grab the beads there for BennyQ. Wasted the transformation. Windfire Wheels not going to be used, and BigManTingz gets to hold on to those beads for the time being. I understand the play, though. You see a Poseidon, looks like he's by himself, try and force something. The Valhalla Valkyries don't have many of those opportunities, and unfortunately that one slips away.
A proactive play for BennyQ, but unfortunate for him, just slightly out of range to be able to land that sash. It says Pyromancer for the Camelot Kings on the right side of the map. Only Fury still 2.5 away from spawning back in. Sash onto Gamma. Twig takes him up to the sky, but what's waiting for Gamma when he lands back in? A Whirlpool and a Kraken, a little bit more. Maw hits as well. And CaptainTwig goes 6-0 to start this game out. And now it's only towers left in mid, and not for much longer. Tier 1 has fallen away. Variety finds the grapple onto Wowy.
Wow.
And it's 1 for BigManTingz now, 2 for him to keep this game going. And again, who cares about Fire Giant? The Camelot Kings don't need anything besides just their own might to take all 6 towers off the map of the Valkyries.
That is an absurd amount of pressure that the Camelot Kings have on this map. 10k gold in their favor with no Fire Giant down. You got to imagine now is time to grab that Fire Giant, but Genetics doesn't have too much HP. You can see Aquarius is stepping up here. But with Variety playing zone duty, and with that Frenzy pop, this Fire Giant is going to go down extremely fast, and the Valks not even in sight. Might even go for Aquarius on the chase. Eagles Rally is good, and CaptainTwig doesn't quite have access to Windfire Wheels, so at the very least, the Valkyries are safe for now. They can go back to base and try and grab some farm in the meantime. Kyrmi smart, recognizes that no one is here just yet, but should be careful. You can tell the Variety's trying to go for the cutoff, and that ultimate is not available. Kyrmi's going to have to foot it all the way back. Oh my God, CaptainTwig! I mean, BigManTingz rather is so fast on this Poseidon, actually able to catch him.
Evie zooming, Kraken just off the mark, but more than enough damage. BennyQ's gonna try for part 2, but BigManTingz says, okay, that's 2 for me instead. He'll go down to Wowy at the end of it all, but Gen X on the run to try and grab Gamma, doesn't find the freeze to blink out, and Variety even ults to try and close up the gap. Meanwhile, Netrioid zooming on with the Maw to close up some even further gap. Genetics and the rest of the Kings want to try and grab anything, but grapple off the mark by Variety should be the end of the push for the Kings, at least as far as the team fight, but maybe towards mid with the wave coming up. could be a fight for this mid-Phoenix.
Yeah, they've got 2. Kyrmi should be spawning in here in about 4 seconds with ultimate available. But this Phoenix is going down very slowly, especially with the defense here. Gamma's walking up. Minions are almost gone, and the Phoenix is only at half health. Looks like they should be able to grab it unless some body blocks come through.
Ultimate from Wowy is good. Netrioid goes into the whirlpool, disengaged for the Kings, but Kyrmi's not going to let them walk away for free. A dunk in on the CaptainTwig would be a huge shutdown, but instead it's a kill onto Netrioid. Maybe an extra pick onto Variety. The rest of the Kings will just allow him to go down. But there's a lot of chase potential for the Valkyries if Aquarius can close up the gap. Maybe a pick towards genetics, but at least for now, the Valkyries will take their 2. BigManTingz around the corner with Kraken back up. Not sure how deep the Valkyries want to push.
They do have Gamma's ultimate, BennyQ's transformation coming up here shortly as well. They do have to deal with the fire minions though, and more importantly, the Kraken from BigManTingz is certainly available. I imagine this is a clear the wave and get out situation. Tier 2 tower is going to be hard, but they're trying to force this.
Oh no, Gamma yanked back into the Kraken of the Whirlpool, and Aquarius not much further to go. Double kill for CaptainTwig, or I should just say at least one. There's the double now, and could be an easy extra pick for him. CaptainTwig finds the triple kill. One more for the Camelot Kings. A deicide onto the Valkyries. And the Camelot Kings can do no wrong in this game.
They're marching forward. That
Wait, did
Phoenix
they just
is
win?
down. I'm imagining they're going to go for the end here. The minions, certainly not the call, but CaptainTwig looks like he wants the speed buff. Oh, the right side minions. That's a better call. Go for the right Phoenix. Still very early respawn timers. 11 seconds on Kyrmi and 15 for Aqua and Gamma. Right side bird, definitely the correct call here from the Camelot Kings. Get this and probably retreat unless you can find another pick. CaptainTwig has Windfire Wheels, but not feeling that lucky. Decide to back up. Maybe grab the Oni Fury and take away the rest of the buff camps in the process. 17-4, J-Mac, after how game number 1 went.
Yeah.
Definitely a complete flip of the script here for the Camelot Kings. You can imagine they were like, okay, we sort of dropped the ball in game number 1. We are not letting that happen again. And CaptainTwig, especially 9-0 on this Naja, can do no wrong, as you said. Looks like the Oni Fury will go down. One more bird left standing, but this Fire Giant buff spawns. I mean, the Fire Giant spawns back in a minute 20, but the buff falls off in about 30 seconds or so. Only Genetics and CaptainTwig still have it, and that'll go away here shortly.
Fury over for the Kings. BennyQ.
Oh, no.
Solo clearing the purple. Stealths into the lane. Will use his stun on the wave. That's the call for Variety and Netrioid to go in. Transformation into the Naja. And a quick blink out immediately afterwards. So BennyQ will be okay for the time being, but a very expensive retreat for him as he loses both blink and ultimate. Though ult cooldown, not quite as hefty as he's been leveling it up here, but still not the best position that you want to be in with Fire Giant coming back up.
Yeah, definitely not. Gamma. He's a little bit out of position here, I would say, but it looks like since that sash is off the mark, actually just blinking in to do some damage on the rest of the team. Gamma's going to be gone eventually, right?
I mean, he lands down. Not a whole lot of follow-up. Kraken still available for BigManTingz. And up on the tree is Kyrmi. Where will he dunk down? In the middle of 3, but Aquarius is low, and so is Kyrmi. BigManTingz gets one. Kraken slams Wowy, and he's gone before the CC's even over. Netrioid picks up the double. Gamma slowed down, walled off, and dropped as CaptainTwig goes 10-0-9. BennyQ, the only one left alive, as Oni fire minions are pushing into the throne room. The Camelot Kings off of that, barring a miracle defense from BennyQ, game number 1, or game number 2, the first of those 2 for now. The Camelot Kings, they march up the throne room.
Yeah, they've got Oni minions, they've got the Trebuchet, and CaptainTwig already gonna be on this Titan. You gotta imagine BennyQ's just gonna defend the Phoenix. He's not even walking over at the moment, and Titan's at half health.
Yeah, Titan will go down. Not much Benny can do at this point in time to defend. Transforms for a last-second Kraken, but the Camelot Kings, after 35, near 40-minute game number 1, this back-and-forth tug-of-war with the Valkyries, complete flip of the script for this one in game number 2. Complete domination across the board.
I mean, I'm putting Twig back on Naja if that's the case. I
Right?
mean, yeah, I enjoyed the Lancelot in the early, but the Naja, like we said, night and day difference. And if I'm the Valkyries, I might be taking that one away at the very least. Of course, Naja's only as good as the follow-up. BMT was always there with the Krakens, that sort of thing, but it seemed like Twigs was making those plays even without the ultimate, even without Windfire Wheels. Those ring tosses were confirming some kills as well. So, I mean, the Camelot King as a whole looked very strong, but for me, Twig looked so different than game number 1. He was able to do so much more, and also, more specifically, shut down a lot of Kyrmi was able to do in game number 1.
Yeah, 10-0 performance out of CaptainTwig on the Naja sets the Kings up for a very promising game number 3. Can the Valkyries bounce back, or will the Kings find the reverse sweep? Find out all that and more right after this break.
It's a little unfair that I'll never not care about you. And I don't wanna say, but the second that I wait, no, the words can't get to you. We push and we pull, it's wrong and it's right, it's not black and white. But I know that we'll always be something golden. It's only worth taking to make it. If you took a little time to open up, to see my love, to see my love. It's only worth taking to make it. If you took a little time to open up, to see my love, to
Camelot Kings were able to push us on to a Game 3 against the Valhalla Valkyries. This one, maybe a bit more how we expected the Camelot Kings to roll through things here. It's unbelievable performance from CaptainTwig, and a needed performance from CaptainTwig to kind of right the ship, because it had not been going well out of the jungle for the Kings in the last little bit of time. And so the Camelot Kings turn things around, and Myth, they end up turning things around in a really good way here. On to game number 3 we go.
Yeah, a very convincing win, to be sure, man. The Camelot Kings really did. I mean, it's Twig, right? I mean, considering the last couple of games he's had, what was it, last 4 games, 6-24, having a performance like that to bounce back, not only good for the mental, but good for the win-loss, especially up against the Valkyries. A set that I think the Camelot Kings would almost consider a must-win, a set that the Valkyries also have to consider a must-win as we get closer and closer to Worlds. But it's not just Twig that nets them a duff here. BigManTingz also has a phenomenal performance. Genetics locks down that front line incredibly well. But I'm thinking about that first Gold Fury rotation from Variety that really separates this game. The Mulan heads into that back line, finishes off Aqua, who I had almost assumed was going to work his way out of there, and from there had a great time. And the Camelot Kings, once they're in control like that, generally don't let go. Game 1 they did. Game 2 they right the ship.
No, this felt, again, I mentioned it in draft. It felt like standard kind of classic Kings SMITE in the way that they drafted here for game number 2. BigManTingz on something like the Poseidon, CaptainTwig on something like the Naja, and then set up outside of just those two in the Camelot Kings. Kind of just overwhelm the Valks. And Twig, again, a much needed performance here. I wondered if we would see more Charybdis from Netrioid, especially here this weekend. Saw it a couple times against the Dragons. I was curious if the Kings were going to totally abandon that play style, and no, they bring it back, 3-1-9 for net. Really, the Twig, Tings, jungle mid combo here, Myth, goes 17-3 combined, and at 10-0-9. I mean, bounce back, you know, if you put together like a decent little game here, that feels good. That's an incredible game from CaptainTwig on the Naja, and certainly shows what he's capable of. 19
of 21 affected kills there, but CaptainTwig was everything on the map and then some. It is so hard to match performance when CaptainTwig is having a game like that. So maybe Kyrmi after game 1 feeling himself a little bit. Game 2 gets a little bit of a reality check. Now we're back on an even playing field as we start to move into game number 3. I'd like to see adaptations from the Valkyries, something that could restrict Twig's movement in the jungle, I think, would go a long way. We were talking about it a little bit earlier, the answer that a lot of other teams had found to the Camelot Kings, besides just, you know, blitzkrieging them before they're allowed to get that macro game in play, is to pressure the jungle, make sure that Twig isn't allowed to maneuver. It's worked out in the past. I'd argue it's what the Valkyries did in game 1. Maybe they try and go back to that in game 3.
And now we have got back-to-back big jungle games. Kyrmi in game 1, CaptainTwig in game 2. Where do the jungle picks lie for game number 3? A very, very important game number 3 for both of these two teams. Really sets the stage. Remember, I don't want to put anyone into a world of like chaos, but there are 2 weeks left of SPL.
What?
For the phase after this. Did that really just shake your world?
Dude, I am in a world of chaos right now.
I'm sorry I put you in that world of chaos, Smith. That's my bad. But really just, it's crazy how fast the year's kind of caught up to things now. 2 weeks left of the SPL after today. Little break for Thanksgiving, and then we get right into SOC, SEC qualifiers, things like that. World's just around the corner. Not a lot of time to make big sweeping team adaptations. This is where earlier on, to the Bolts credit and to the Kings credit, starting to test things out and see how they might end up looking at Worlds. Ymir, that'll be the first pick here for the Valhalla Valkyries. Remember, it worked out
just trading it back and forth
nicely, yeah, for Gamma in game number 1. And then fantastic for the Kings. It does limit a bit of what the Kings maybe look to do, because was a pivotal piece of the puzzle there in game 2.
So Ymir going to do exactly what it has been, which is forcing Phantom Shells, controlling pressure in the duo lane, and having very strong rotations towards mid. Surprised to see this as an immediate response. With Ymir locked in, I do hedge my bets that this Ishtar is likely slated for mid. You're able to pressure Ymir pretty well with Ishtar if you do take it into the duo lane, but if it's also a high aggressive kill pressure style pick for Wowy, that means that Ishtar is just a god that doesn't necessarily deal too well with that wall. So maybe a position you don't want to be put in. So I mean, I like Ishtar. I think she's incredibly strong. She's got one of the best ultimates out of the Hunter role. That is just so much disruption factor, the cripple, the stun, all very, very good. But the concern is how easy it is to jump on that god once the ultimate has been expended. And Daji is a pick that could do exactly that.
Yep.
Oh, your ult's down? Let me go ahead, Trickster Spirit into that back line. You've got no answer to 1,000 cuts. And you got phenomenal lockdown, Ymir with the walls as well. I think the Valkyries, even just looking at these two picks now, can just kind of all in on the aggression style and try and slow down the Kings around this Ishtar and Horus, both gods that will struggle to deal with walls.
No, and I think that's important, really keying in on the style, because that's something that the Valks had for a little while this year when the team showed drastic improvement. It was leaning into that early game, we're going to scrap and fight and build up these leads types of games, and abandoned it, not wholeheartedly, but moved away from it around the middle of the year. Now maybe moving back into it a little bit. So Ymir, Poseidon, Daji, I'll say a similar thing to what I was saying about the Kings.
Okay.
You're starting to get into just big setup knockdown type territory. Daji for the good pull-ins, Poseidon with the Kraken, Ymir for the freezes. It's like we're talking about a Kings draft, but it's the Valkyries who are playing it. And Myth, it looks like Ishtar will end up in duo with this Horus now that the Yu Huang locked in for the Kings.
Yeah, this top three from the Valks functions exactly the same as we had seen from the Kings in the previous match. You're just trading out the Daji for a Naja, but either way, pal out, pull in, set up, have a Kraken land or a Shards of Ice land immediately afterward. So no surprise that the Kings want to get something that can deal with all of that CC in kit. Ishtar, CC immunity, the ultimate. Horus, the exact same thing. Yu Huang, one of the most slippery, if not the most slippery mage in the game. Will make it very difficult for the all-in engagement of the Valkyries here. But as far as confirmable damage in late-game team fights in 5-on-5, my concerns are starting to raise for the Kings now. It's single-target initiation from the Horus. Yu Huang is incredibly hit or miss. It feels like either the Dueling Dragons is slamming 2 and completely changing a team fight, or you're whiffing the Dueling Dragons, dropping Phoenix Fire on your feet, floating away, and then dying on landing, right? It is a very, very volatile style pick in some of these games, especially with the Valk's chase down potential.
Yep.
So the Kings certainly got themselves a high execution composition, at least just in the top 3. They could shore that up a little bit with some more confirmable AoE CC or a little bit more confirmable just long-range damage. But the Valks have got, I think, the advantage in ease of play. Their composition, at least from their top 3, the strategy is clear and easy to execute on.
Kings, never the type of team to shy away from high execution compositions.
Strike true.
Tend to perform very, very well. Another good game for variety on Mulan. Again, even with 1 win and 1 loss in the last couple of times we saw it. Good KDAs, 1-1-9 in game number 2 here against the Valkyries was a win. And another good shout. Really opens up variety to be more mobile and set up. Likes the tier type of picks, likes the Guan Yus. And Genetics in heated discussions with the rest of the team, trying to decide exactly where they want to go with their final
Begging
pick.
Twig not to play Thor. Please don't lock in Thor, Twig. I know they banned
Just
the Lance and the
screaming
Robin.
a Thor pick to you? Did Thor come to mind?
I don't know. I'm just having some fun at Twig's expense. Legitimately, if I had to guess where the Kings are going to go with their jungle selection, I'm kind of leaning towards like a Hunbots, but that's just because Twig's Twig and he likes that pick.
Yeah. I'm thinking Thor. Just kidding.
Imagine.
That would be a pretty wild turnaround considering Genetics is begging Twig not to play the Thor.
Yeah, we've got that confirmed now.
Yeah, right.
That's canon.
100%, that's true. Tier picked up now for the Valhalla Valkyries Soul Laner and Aquarius. And then Ho-Yi. I was wondering where Wowy was going to go because he's loved the Ishtar pick. Not going to get that, obviously. Then goes to the Cupid a good bit of the time. Clearly not going to get that. No Cernanos. Ho-Yi ends up being the answer. And we're both wrong, Myth. Pele, for the 30th time this phase, locked in for the Kings.
So it is a dive-heavy one-for-one trade style of pick. I think the Pele very often in these late-game team fights will kind of just wait on the Daji to go in and then try and create space. Because so often it's Daji, blink forward, immediately into the Powwow, and everybody else from the Valkyries is going to surge forward with her. Poseidon needs to get in range to follow up with the Kraken. Tyr needs to get in range to follow up with that Fearless. So if Pele could just use Volcanic Lightning, close gap into that back line, and dissuade the Poseidon from actually finding valuable follow-up, it could really disrupt how the Valkyries want to approach some of these team fights. I like the Pele pick. Just blanket statement. I think it's a very strong pick and one that does bring very high 1v1 potential up against Daji in the late game. which is hard to say. Daji wins the majority of 1v1s because her burst is so high.
Right.
But on the other end, Hou Yi locked in for the Valks. That is a god you lock in for 1v1 potential. That's a god as a vote of confidence in your ability to fight your opponent in the 1v1. Up against an Ishtar, I'm not certain you really want to be 1v1ing all that often. So long as she's got access to that ultimate and times it well, you can completely immune the stun from Hou Yi or completely ignore the slows from the Reigning Suns. But I would say whichever one of these two, Ishtar or Hou Yi, finds that first pick, if there is a kill in the 1v1, will likely just continue to bully that lane.
Yeah, I mean, with the Ymir on one side, a Horus on the other, absolutely potential for scrapping over in the dual lane. And remember what we talked about going into game one? It's been a fun transition for the Valkyries team where you can look at the dual lane as a real viable win condition at times for this team, where Wowy and Gamma have improved their play to the point where you're giving them a little bit of credit here. So the Valkyries have set the stage nicely. They've given themselves a chance here in game 3. Camelot Kings, though, in the fashion that they roar back in game 2, clearly gives momentum over to the Kings themselves. I want to talk a bit about pacing again, though, Myth, because in the past the Kings have slowed things down. A lot of teams tend to do that in game 3. Does this feel like a composition from the Kings that does want to slow things down, push things to Pyromancer fights, Fury fights, Fire Giant fights at the end of the game?
No, I think this is a comp lane for lane that can bring the fight early on, especially that Yu Huang for the first couple of levels can really look to pressure. Pele wants to get involved early. Mulan is a solo bully. Even the kill pressure of a Horus and an Ishtar.
Yep.
Sure, you're playing against Ymir Hou Yi, but the CC lockdown, the lob autos, all very strong.
Do the Valhalla Valkyries or the Camelot Kings get a much-needed win? We'll find out in game number 3.
That's right. We jump into the coveted third game now between the Valhalla Valkyries and the Camelot Kings. Only one team can go home with the win in their win column today. The other one's going to have to be sitting with an unfortunate loss out there. Will it be the Valkyries who go down to 1-8? Will it be the Camelot Kings who have to fall just a little bit further? All that will be answered in game number 3. It's J-Mac, Trelly, and Doug to bring you the action one more time for our second set. Genetics back on a signature pick of his own. We talk about this Horus all the time whenever we think about the Camelot Kings. And I think kind of talking about the dual lane, you know, it's a Horus Ishtar up against a Ymir Hou Yi. Feels like that could really go either way, Trelly.
It does seem like it. These body blocks from Genetics are actually just too good. Gamma couldn't even get in. He wants the mini so bad, he's not going to be able to grab him. He got one, actually. So there you go. He got one mini in that situation. But Gamma, of course, not going to be able to ever steal the buff. Oh, he didn't even get the mini? Oh, man. No. He actually didn't even get the mini. Unfortunate. Good timed hog then by Genetics. So nets nothing, but does slow down the clear a little bit. And at the very least, Wowy is going to have a little bit of extra farm in the meantime.
Unfortunate for Gamma. Couldn't get
those
ones. Yeah. thought maybe he got one. I have been really thankful for Doug for keeping that XP per minute up, so that way we can really kind of keep track on how much these supports are getting from these ones. It's unfortunate when you do have to use your hog in order to confirm the first buff, because you definitely want to save it for that second. CaptainTwig hitting the W key over in the mid lane at least to try and get some pressure up for BigManTingz. Pele Yu Huang up against a Poseidon Daji. Not the most damage early from the Valhalla Valkyries, but could definitely put some sneaky threat up against the Kings 2v2.
I'm loving the mental gymnastics that these teams have been having to do, because remember at the beginning of the phase, I guess at the beginning of Season 9, actually hold that thought, CaptainTwig with a very early rotation. No one really knows about this, and Gamma's got to be the target.
Stun on a Gamma, knock up number 1, should be another one waiting behind. Beads burned by CaptainTwig to help guarantee this kill, but they're taking a long time to kill this Ymir. Gamma will finally go down, but not even as a first blood. That one goes to Kyrmi on the opposite side of the map with a pick onto Variety.
That was off the back of CaptainTwig missing one of those Pyroclasts. Just not enough damage and some good regen from Gamma. That's huge, losing that first blood value, especially with CaptainTwig not even getting that kill. It did go over to Netrioid, so Kyrmi was able to grab the first blood. A lot of extra gold in pocket there. It's going to help out a bit, but still a trade in that essence. You just got to watch out for Variety now, who's going to be a little bit behind. And of course, Aquarius on this tier once again. Already piloted this pick extremely well in game number 1. You got to imagine that Aquarius is going to be able to get even more of a lead now.
Barring another random skirmish, we can take a look back, at least on the kill that happens on the right side of the map. The first blood that Kyrmi ended up getting just not even a half a second before the opposite one. It starts off with a blink fearless by Aquarius. Great setup for him, and not much variety can do as a level 2 Mulan at that point. Just great play and a great heads up from Kyrmi to make that rotation over.
Yeah, recognize that variety was killable. Had the teleport, so no sort of relic for survivability in that aspect. That's going to be the call. But because of the aggression over in duo lane, looks like no invade from either team in that situation. Camelot Kings will be able to confirm their own purple buff in BennyQ. Going to be the first one to level 5 gets access to that ultimate. Gotta watch out for the aggression. BMT into the Celestial Flight. And that's going to be it. No more aggression in the mid lane. But sitting at a 1-for-1, gold relatively even, a little bit actually in favor of the Valks just off the back of that first blood bounty. I do imagine that both of these teams want to get active though. I mean, the fights have been clean. It was more so dual lane pressure for the side of the Camelot Kings. But because the blink is not there, because CaptainTwig was forced into the beads just off of the selection of the Daji, you know, you gotta be careful here if you're on this payload.
Aquarius trying to keep up the pressure against Variety. Variety has some decent sustain with this Mulan, being able to heal with that second ability, that spear thrust, to try and match some of the sustain that Aqua has. But at least for BennyQ, level 5, wonder where he'll put that first Kraken. Will it be up against CaptainTwig? Will it be against BigManTingz? Or maybe waits for Kyrmi to get some of the setup. Beads are available for BigManTingz, but now that BMT is level 5, 3 forms of CC immunity get away from this Palo. Kind of sways it to believe that Kyrmi might not even put his eyes over towards this lane to put pressure out.
Yeah, unless the Celestial Flight is forced out. I don't even think Palo is necessary to kill mages in a meta like this where the Warlock isn't quite online yet. Like, you have plenty of damage as a Daji to just try and go for the 100-0. Variety getting the better end of Aquarius here just because Aquarius is not yet backed. Variety got the back to base, was able to pick up a chalice and then teleport back in, whereas Aquarius sitting on a bit of gold right now, 2,200 to be exact. So should be able to pick up actually tier 2 Blackthorn Hammer. The Shillelagh goes a long way, just with a little bit of HP, that sort of thing. It'll help out over in lane. Especially when you're trying to get active, right? When you recognize that you're up against Variety on the Mulan, it's going to have a Sovereignty start properly. So if you want to try and look to get aggressive, you want to try and find some fights, it's going to help out to go a hybrid item rather than just full defense there. And actually, the Valks are going to be able to invade the Greater Scorpion. Just off the back of a little bit of pressure being gone in Genetics. Feels just fine trying to go for the invade here. Wowy, not even going to walk over to his purple buff.
Nah, Netrioid and Genetics will take that one away. Absolutely no problem. 2 points into the fracture for
3
Genetics.
points into the
Actually,
fracture.
3 now. That he's ticked over level 6, so gonna have a lot of extra prot shred. We'll say Shillelagh might be my favorite item name in the game, if not just because it's fun to say the word Shillelagh.
Oh, yeah.
So anytime that we get to see that one kind of make its way into the meta, always fun, just in that regard. But something that I believe Aquarius did back in game number 1, started with the Blackthorn Hammer Rush, and then started going to some of those other defenses. So back on the tier again, it worked out really well for him in game number 1. He was able to find quite a few extra picks that his team would have ended up dropping had he not been able to close that gap. But now it's gap closed on a Gamma. This time, we'll go much cleaner for the Camelot Kings. No room for error there, but maybe it's an exact 1-for-1 on the opposite side. Taking up the tower is Aquarius. Kyrmi will get the damage through, but it's an ult in to lock Aquarius a little bit longer. As soon as that CC immunity fades, it is a yank back in from the pal out, but it's just not enough damage. Variety healed up all the way. Aquarius goes back in. It's a baiting Variety back for the fight, and it will be Gamma for Variety once again.
You could see Variety was giggling because he was like, oh, CaptainTwig's on the way. I'll try and stop his back. And unfortunately, Aquarius said, okay. Like, you're gonna try and stop my back. I don't care. I got Blink up. Beautiful combo there. I'm going to call it a solo kill, even though it was a bit of a gank there. The fact that Variety stopped his back on his own volition tells me he was down for that fight. And Aquarius is able to grab that one. Still, Genetics has not left this duo lane. I mean, Netrioid has been essentially getting babysat. I think just because Wowy had a bit of pressure earlier before, but now Netrioid's got a kill under his belt and has been clearing this wave effectively. That forces Gamma over to put some more pressure towards this duo lane. Last time Gamma was here, got caught out by the gank. But this time, sitting underneath the tower, not going to step up too far. Wowy's got access to the Suns and a freeze. Could mean some kill potential there to Genetics.
It's always that annoying response as a support player where you're like, all right, cool, I'm going to head out. I'm going to leave this lane. You have fun, bro. Just don't die. It's all cool. And then all of a sudden you get a message back or a voice comment like, dude, his support hasn't left. Can you like please just come back to lane so I don't feel like I'm always in this 2v1. And you're just like,
See,
I don't know, man. Maybe I just go put 2v1 elsewhere. And then you get like 17 pings and they're like, fine, I'll come over and help you out.
I don't know what games you're in, because the games that I'm in, well, actually, hold that thought. Aquarius is going to have the juke shoes here. Lawbringer available, so I don't imagine too much kill potential. And actually, Aquarius wanted that fight, CaptainTwig running out of mana. But the games that I'm in, if I'm support, I leave lane. Their support sticks around, ganks, kills my duo laner. I go over to try and help. He spams, leave, 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 I don't want you here. And then he dies again. Those are the games that I'm in, so I wish that I had the ADC. They're like, please, come sap my farm, sir. I would love if you came and took some waves.
Instead, we're sitting there soloing the green buff for 5 minutes,
Yo.
trying to get any crumb of experience
Oh,
to
yeah.
ourselves that we can. 3-man rotation
Look at
for
this.
Variety. They really want to put this Mulan down on the Valkyries, and Variety gets good heal, but pushed against the wall, freeze off the mark. Variety able to dash back in, and actually a turnaround kill onto Gamma. But it'll be a 1-for-1 trade, maybe 2. CaptainTwig yanked back into the Pal-Out, but Genetics on the way in to try and help out. CaptainTwig low, doesn't find the knock-up, but a stun from Genetics will push Kyrmi away. And at the end of the day, it is just 1-1. Again, Gamma for Variety.
I mean, Variety is living way too long. I mean, that's just it. With the Sovereignty, with the Tier 2 Glad Shield, these dives underneath tower are just not working, and you may say that was worth it, but trading and giving Variety a kill during that engagement, definitely in favor of the Camelot Kings. I suppose the gold is still about 100 in favor of the Valks, but it's been that way since First Blood, where Kyrmi was able to find it. So I just don't imagine trying to force these ganks that hard. It's going to net too much, but I suppose losing your solo first support is a trade that at the moment the Valks are willing to take. When that happens, though, Gamma gets this weak. Dueling Dragons off the mark. Gamma will be just fine for the time being.
Those were very close on both of those Dragons, just a little away from the collapse in, but Trebuchet does go down in mid with at least some decent effort by Gamma Benny to hold that one back. Gamma did take quite a lot of poke from BigManTingz and Gen X. I think the Whirlpool, or the tidal wave from BennyQ actually pushed that second swipe of Gen X's dash away from him. The Camelot Kings keeping the game even. Dead even state as far as gold is concerned. Kills are even. Now that we're approaching 10 minutes, that Pyromancer will be on the menu for either of these teams. Even experience matching that of the gold between these two squads. And for the fact that Variety has gone down 3 times, Trelly, he's only sitting a level behind Aquarius after all of this.
Yeah, I think, the teleport obviously helping out in that regard, being able to join back in almost always after these deaths come through. But also just because how long it takes to kill Variety. I mean, the stall with that ultimate, I mean, you just get so much attention thrown to you, especially underneath the tower. A lot of CC that Variety's able to dish out, so isn't missing that much farm in the process. But at the very least, it's put Kyrmi and Aquarius in a decent position where they're able to get their items online very early. The Jotun's Wrath and the Brawlers here for Kyrmi, so that's going to be a lot of damage as well as the anti-heal on board for the Daji, whereas Aquarius, I mean, you've got the Tier's Dream here. You got Blackthorn, you got Gladshield, that's all you really need. Maybe a Wingblade later on, but you're able to 100-0 squishies. Speaking of squishies, CaptainTwig getting poked down.
No beads for 30. Kraken doesn't find much. Gamma will get the kill with an ultimate, but BennyQ falls in response. A slow and a jolt now on towards Gamma. BigManTingz should be able to get that kill with a couple more autos, and now it's just Kyrmi up against 3. Onto the Pal-Lao. Won't find anybody, instead disengages right into a stun. And the setup for Netrioid and BigManTingz, a 3-for-1 trade at the end of the day. And the Camelot Kings will then move to the Gold Fury to grab a little bit more.
Aquarius is on the way, though. Does have Blink and Lawbringer. Might be too little too late. It's getting close because they're bouncing back and forth. Aquarius could go for a steal. Just pushes Netrioid away.
Does push him off.
No
Gold
way!
Fury does go to the Valkyries. Aquarius, the lone
Look at
army
him
in this
laughing.
one. Even Wowy standing by going, well, I can't believe he actually got that one. I can't believe a tier just stole that away.
I can't believe the Kings bounced it back and forth. Is your HP that much more worth than just DPSing it down before the tier that cleared a wave in mid, by the way?
Yeah.
Walks up. They knew he was coming. And they're like, what's a tier going to do? Let's just bounce it back and forth. We don't want to get under 50% HP. Well, unfortunately for the Camelot Kings, they are going to lose that one. Still ahead in gold, but it could have been a lot worse for the Valks if not for a great play by Aquarius. Honestly, if I'm tier, I'm probably clearing that wave and just going back to lane and realizing it's probably done, but Aquarius goes massive for his team. And now, still a relatively even game. I imagine Pyromancer next on the board here for the Camelot Kings, and you can tell Genetics already putting some vision over towards it and standing by.
Genetics level 9. 1, 0, and 4 on the horse. Has the bell for Nua working towards what I imagine be a Spirit Robe. Sun onto Genetics, a Kraken to Genetics, and perfect CC chain to take down the support. Not a single opportunity to get that healing dash back over towards safety to the rest of the team. Great combo by the Valkyries to take out the support of the Kings, put that first death in his column.
Yeah, so the Pyromancer's not going to be going down for the time being. Just dropping all your ults onto the Horus was the call. Once that Spirit Robe gets finished up, much tankier in that regard. That combo won't be as easy to pull off, but got in just in the nick of time before Genex was able to finish that item. Gamma also working on it, so gonna help out. There's a bunch of lockdown for both of these compositions and realizing, hey, we're gonna be standing at the forefront of this fight, probably taking a lot of that CC. Definitely an item you'll get your money's worth. But this all started over a little bit of a dance towards the Pyromancer, which still has not been looked at from either one of these teams. Remember, the Valks were able to steal away that Fury. Now the Camelot Kings gonna go for it. Gamma's got the wall though, can stop some of the DPS, but it looks like the Valks nowhere in sight. Camelot Kings will be able to grab that one for free.
Pyromancer to push the game's lead back for the Kings even after the Fury steal from the Valks. Genetics zoning away Gamma once again, and CaptainTwig losing his beads to Aquarius. Genetics level 10, dashes back to BigManTingz, dueling Dragon Slam Kyrmi, but not much more beyond there. Variety even still being zoned away by Aquarius at the top side of the fight. So Pyromancer plus a Scorpion over to the Kings. That pushes them up to about an 800 gold lead, but I mean 14 minutes in the game, 800 gold, 800 experience, not really all that much.
Yeah, definitely not. I'm wondering who's going to be able to deal with Aquarius as this game goes on, because CaptainTwig was just getting bullied by this tier. Unfortunately, wasn't able to make it over towards the Pyromancer. Maybe that's the call. Fight away from the tier until late game when you have the DPS to try and deal with him. Could be the call. But it's going to be about 2 minutes before the Oni Fury spawns in, and I imagine that'll be pretty useful for both of these teams to try and set up for. At the very least, get these ADCs active. I mean, Wowy and Netrioid, I've just been watching on the map. It's been wave, maybe a camp, maybe an interceptor, purple buff back, repeat the process. No real damage being done. And since Netrioid's got 2 kills, you'd think the Camelot Kings would want to fight over on that side of the map, but because the Fury's down and the Pyromancer was up, definitely the smart call to put all of your attention over on the right. But now that the objectives are going to be back on the left side of the map, you got to imagine fighting with your 2-0 Ishtar, probably going to be pretty useful to do.
Problem is, though, even though this Ishtar is 2-0-2, it's about a half level behind Wowy. Does have the Odysseus bow finished before the kin size that Wowy has started into as opposed. But again, I mean, it is a case of like fight where your lead is. At the moment, that lead is through the dual lane as far as kills are concerned, but BigManTingz up a level compared to BennyQ. You'd think maybe that could be an option for the Camelot Kings, but again, it comes down to that mentality of theirs. We don't fight without a reason. We're not just going to fight for the sake of fighting. It doesn't seem that's going to change for the Camelot Kings here in Game 3.
Doesn't seem to be the call, but 40 seconds in. BennyQ, oh my goodness, absolutely deleted. The Kraken comes through with CaptainTwig. Might be the trade.
Gets the knock up, but not getting a whole lot of healing back. Kyrmi makes it a 1-for-1. Genetics ports in with his ultimate too late to be a part of the team fight. Netrioid dashes in aggressively against Wowy. The sun's rained down. The sword's in response. Big ricochet onto Netrioid, puts them at even health bars, but Netrioid's got the ranged autos to be able to fight back using that 1C. Genetics on the way, doesn't get there in time. Instead, an invade towards the red buff. We saw the damage output. That was at least onto 1. Aquarius finds the blink push with the Fearless, finds another double Fearless and double power cleave. Red buff secured for the Valkyries. BigManTingz out of the fight as far as he can go. Kyrmi does have the ult to go back in. BigManTingz, no beads and no life as Kyrmi grabs a killing spree for himself. Gamma charging up the ultimate on 3. Doesn't find much damage in that regard. It's another massive Fearless from Aquarius. He's going insane on the tier. It's a double for Kyrmi. Give him a triple. If Genetics can't get out in time, Variety at least able to shut down the jungler. But Aquarius is going massive on this tier.
Yeah, I've been asking the question. So far, no answers. And the Oni Fury going to be started up here. Variety does not have the ultimate, but is very tanky with Blink available. Aquarius pushes him away, and that should be the confirmation onto the Oni Fury. The Valhalla Valkyries able to climb ahead just a bit in the gold department, only about 100. But the Oni minions might help out a bit, trying to get some more pressure throughout the map. CaptainTwig actually just split pushing over on right currently, trying to clear that wave out while Variety's in mid. But as you said, triple Fearless from Aquarius. I mean, it's just no one seems to be having any lockdown just yet. Genetics is using that CC for the rest of the team, as he should. You know, if you're CCing a tier, you're probably wasting that CC because of the passive. But so far, I haven't seen any answers. 1-0-5 was top of the damage charts. I imagine still is. And yes, by a big margin. Aquarius is having a great game. And BennyQ might find a solo kill.
One more auto would have been it. Benny actually just solo cracking Variety for the kill, but now to turn around on towards Benny. Dueling Dragons don't find BennyQ, but they hold Gamma back. And CaptainTwig gets the kill on the mid laner. Now Gamma finds the wall to keep away. Kyrmi is here. Keep your eyes, though, on Aquarius. Blink is back. Kyrmi and Gamma port themselves away. Aquarius will not continue in. What looks so great for BennyQ nearly getting a solo kill ends up being a turnaround for the Camelot Kings.
Yeah, unfortunate. Not going to be the call. Now the Kings back in the driver's seat. Going to try and take away this red buff, and they will. Pyromancer just touched back down. You have to imagine that's got to be what's up next here for the Camelot Kings, trying to push that gold lead even more ahead. But again, that is where Aquarius is hiding. This is his lane at the moment. So getting near him could be some trouble, especially if the follow-up is there. But with BennyQ dead for the next 3 seconds, as well as no beads for 2 minutes, maybe not contesting the Pyromancer could be the right call here. The Valhalla Valkyries aren't so far behind. They have to be afraid to fight, but walking up, getting pulled in, getting CC stained by genetics into the damage from BigManTingz. And that's been the case, right? BigManTingz also topping those damage charts. He's been absolutely chunking with these abilities. The Yu Huang has been very fruitful. And actually the Valks, with a rotation from Wowy, are going to start up this Pyromancer.
Not much answer.
And get it.
For the Camelot Kings. Valkyries take the Pyromancer for themselves. They slowly start to close up this gold lead just a little bit. Only about 600-700 between these two teams now. A lot of this off the back of Aquarius. 1-0-5 on this tier. We'll just continue his bullying up against Variety. Shouldn't be able to find the kill with only Gamma here, but now with Wowy and BennyQ. Could be a nice and big pick against Variety. He will use the ult to get out. The sun's right down. Aquarius will shove him right back against the wall. Sets up for another Kraken and a little bit more after. It's Wowy to get the kill, but it's all Aquarius to set it up.
That is going to be the setup and the kill. The Trebuchet going down, and Netrioid has finally made the rotation over. So a 5v4 situation here for the Valks, but they're going to walk into this tier 1 tower, try and catch up in a little bit in the gold department. Losing Variety is big, and teleports down for 80, so he's going to have to foot it all the way back if anything else comes from this. But because of the builds online, I don't imagine you're in any position to try and make a Fire Giant pull here. It's just too tightly knit of a game, and actually Aquarius is sitting on about 2,500 gold. You definitely don't want to fight with a situation like that. A full Magi's was purchased, as well as tier 1 cloak, so just even more slippery is this tier. The wing blade into the Magi's. That's what I was expecting, and now I was asking who's going to stop him before. It's looking even more difficult now to try and lock down this tier.
He's already fast. Already has a passive that makes it hard to lock him down with CC. Now he's got a bubble and beads. Yeah, good luck catching Aquarius at any point here. And he has been the playmaker for his team. Found the triple Fearless early to set up for kills for Kyrmi. Has found multiple Fearlesses during these individual little fights to set up for kills for himself or for his team. And maybe a pick on towards Variety. Pushed against the wall, but Variety's able to get away from that one. The sun's right down. Variety's stuck in the middle. Aquarius and Kyrmi teaming up inside the Suns. BennyQ though low, and CaptainTwig has the beads away so he doesn't go down to the Kraken, but Aquarius is keeping Netrioid out of the fight on the top side, but Kyrmi will go down to Variety in just a moment. Maybe he won't. Teleport away for Kyrmi. Variety can't close the gap, and instead he gets shoved down. Wow, he can't find the damage for the kill though. Variety takes down one before he falls after. Now Gamma low. Aquarius still back to keep the carries out. Genetics zoning Gamma away.
Oh no!
It's a 2-for-2. The wall for Gamma. Not so great. BigManTingz will punish him.
Oh, we've all been there. Gamma walls himself off and confirms that kill. While it looked like the health bars were actually in favor of the Valhalla Valkyries once Kyrmi was able to get out just because of how healthy Aquarius was. Unfortunately, the rest of the team is not as tanky as this tier and certainly not doing as much damage. It was a good wraparound there from Genetics and CaptainTwig as well. BennyQ, I thought, was in a safe position for the time being, but once that blink came through, not the case. Lazy backing with CaptainTwig, 1,000 cuts, not going to be enough, and actually it is because the slow comes through and CaptainTwig goes down.
Just so much movement speed for Kyrmi between speed buff and that extra movement from 1,000 cuts. Catches CaptainTwig, 4-3-3 for the Pele, 7-2-3 for Kyrmi now on the Dodge. Definitely a much better look from the Valkyries from game 2 in towards game 3. Looking closer towards that game 1 style of play that the Valkyries had. We're at 23 minutes in, Trelly, and it's now a 1,000 gold lead for the Valks. And we haven't really fought over many objectives. 2 Gold Furies have gone to the Valks, a couple of Pyromancers here and there as well. So the Kings are keeping in the macro regards, but these team fights are getting closer and closer now as this game keeps going on. And a Fire Giant pull by the Valkyries. The Camelot Kings step up. Variety frozen, pushed against the wall that Gamma sets up. Variety at half HP, still holding on to ult. Now Genetics in the back line. He'll be fine. He's got the bubble. Dueling Dragons on to BennyQ, do a lot of damage, and the Kings will repel the Valkyries for the time being.
Yeah, just losing one ultimate in the process were the Camelot Kings, but BennyQ definitely has to go back to base. Take a look at the relics. Well, didn't have any, so that could have netted a little bit more, especially a kill on the Benny would have been terrible. The only reason the Valks even feel confident going for a Fire Giant pull on a 5v4 situation is because that Kraken is up and available. But it looks like that is the call for the Valks. Back up, get a full reset. Benny's beads up in 15. Kyrmi's beads up in 19 seconds. And after that, try and get aggressive. At the moment, only Variety just use that teleport, so that'll be down for a bit. But besides that, you're just missing really the horrific emblem on Genetics. You got to imagine both teams feeling confident in their ability to fight. But with Burst alone, I mean, BennyQ wants to just be alive and stay safe for his team, get that Kraken off on the Fire Giant and confirm the objective. You can tell BigManTingz is not going to let that happen. These Dueling Dragons have been consistent onto BennyQ, onto this Poseidon. Not going to let that one go through. As Variety might have a bit of a wraparound here. Besides that, Celestial Flight forced, and still the Valkyries with the aggressive positioning.
Genetics blinked into the middle of 3, found the knock-up on 2, but CaptainTwig loses out on his bubble up against Aquarius. That's now another 60 seconds, so that defense is back. Gamma will wall off the Kings. Genetics ultimate down as he actually went backwards with it to zone away. So that's the only ultimate now stripped away. Blink gone for Genetics. He won't have that for the fight. And 10 more seconds till Horrific is up. The Valkyries still pressing forward, waiting to find their pick.
Yeah, they're not going to go for the pull here, it seems. That's got to be the call, right? Gamma goes for the hit, and the issue is Aquarius wants to blink in, Gamma wants to look for a wall, but someone has to tank this up. Someone has to be the first to hit. It is going to be Aquarius. I don't love this play. You can't blink in if Aquarius is in combat. This tells me they are trying to commit to this fight. Variety with the wraparound. He's not going to go in just yet.
Twig blinks out of the fight. Whirlpool off. Gamma half HP. Variety blinks past and uses the ultimate to recuperate and rejoin his team. But Dueling Dragons finds 3 from BigManTingz, but it doesn't get a kill yet. Kyrmi is the one in danger. Gup onto the Palau. CaptainTwig gone. Thanks to the damage from Aquarius. BigManTingz lands down. BennyQ gets the alternate timeline and no shot. Then he lives again off of that ability. Still able to get out, but Variety chasing him down. Netrioid being zoned away by Aquarius. The one-man army of the Valhalla Valkyries. Aquarius gets the double kill. Lawbringer to get over the second hit and the sustain. Somehow Aquarius is still alive, but there's not a chance in the world he gets out up against 3. His blink is down. His Lawbringer is gone.
Late beads.
Beads a little bit late on the call, but
he's fine.
Gamma is now distracting the rest. The sacrificial lamb, or maybe a little bit more Horrific is there. Variety, Genetics, BigManTingz will all make it out.
Wow, what a great fight there for the Valks. Immediately reset into the pull. Kyrmi gonna tank this one up. Only Genetics is gonna be sitting back for now. Variety, though, does have the teleport immediately upgraded. He's not gonna be here in time.
Bubble gone from Genetics. He's gonna take a lot to steal this one away. Fire Giant goes to the Valkyries. Can they get more with Variety? In the middle of 3, he ults over to Wowy, misses the shot, but gets the grapple. Wowy is low, but Aquarius again with another Fearless, keeps his teammate alive. Genetics can't get it in time. Kyrmi finds the kill there, and the Valkyries, with all 5, make their escape.
The Aquarius is nuts today, man. He is
Get him off
making
it.
sure.
I'm done with it.
He's on it, and it's it. This is game 3. You can't ban it anymore. Aquarius 4-0-8. Not quite top of the damage charts anymore, but is for his team. The setup as well as the peel from this tier has been absurd. The Valhalla Valkyries have a 4K gold lead. They've got themselves the first Fire Giant of the game. They got 3 minutes and 20 seconds to play with. A full-on grouping. Look at the relics, though. They don't have anything up. I don't imagine they want to go for an actual pull here. They don't want to go for an actual brawl. I would take as much uncontested farm as possible, but BennyQ has been the first target in these fights consistently. The beads, the shell, the alternate timeline, all are down. All it's going to take is one bit of CC from genetics, and this Poseidon is gone from this earth. So a smart call. No one's at the Gold Fury. Sure, we'll grab that. Push up to left. No one's there. We can grab that tier tower as well. They've got the vision on Variety. No, he's over on the right side of the map currently. So I imagine all this farm is free, but not ready to fight just yet. Beads up in 20 seconds for Wowy and Benny. And then your fight's looking a lot cleaner here for the Valhalla Valkyries.
Fire Giant not enhanced. That's the silver lining for the Kings waiting on this push, is that the Valks need a minion wave to get in. But it's all 5 grouped up on the left. Kyrmi throws a ward over the wall.
Wow.
And the Valkyries push into the Phoenix. Gamma soaking up the damage from the Phoenix, but will be just fine. Aquarius eats a little bit of poke of his own. But you gotta keep your eyes on Aquarius at any given moment now. And even if you don't know that he's around, you have to expect at this point that Aquarius is going to come out and try and make the hero play. Saved his teammate last time around and has been keeping the Valkyries alive in this set. Found a double kill during the last Fire Giant push. Tier 1 tower in mid, Tier 2 in left, and a Tier 2 in mid. Valkyries will continue to bump up that gold as they head towards the right to take out the last structure.
Yeah, definitely the smarter call. I was getting a bit nervous there as Gamma walked into the Phoenix range to try and get the bubble off of genetics. It just seemed like he doesn't really have the HP to try and do that just yet. It seems like a possible sovereignty or an Emperor's Armor coming soon here for Gamma. Has the goal to probably finish one of those items, and I imagine that will be the call. An Emperor's Armor would help out on these Phoenix Seeds, and that is going to be the call. So Gamma backs. He's going to grab that. Kyrmi was able to get the Magi's and upgrade the Temporal Beads for Aquarius and Kyrmi. That's going to help out. That cooldown reset goes a long way. But all the towers are gone. So the Valhalla Valkyries have a solid minute, 60 seconds total, to try and push up, try and look for a Phoenix with the last bit of this Fire Giant buff. They even sent out a Trebuchet towards mid, so that tells me they're feeling like they can go for it. Usually in a situation like this, though, where EFG's up in about 2 minutes, it's going to be a soft attempt at the Phoenix. Sort of weigh your options, see if you can dip your toes in the water, and if not, just a full-on retreat towards the next objective. Because a pick here could be disastrous. A pick on a siege like this when you don't have a guaranteed way into the Phoenix could mean you're losing EFG and possibly the game after.
Valkyries group with 30 seconds and one final minion wave before the buff wears away. Variety making his way over. 4 versus 5. Kyrmi sitting inside the jungle, but with the minion wave down. Doesn't seem that the Valkyries are interested in keeping up their attempted push. BennyQ will just make sure to clear out the wave, and now the Valkyries can reset. And in this next fight around the Fire Giant, Charlie, if you're the Camelot Kings, I mean, what do you do to kind of break open the team fight for yourself? What do you do to get back in this game? Is it to focus down Aquarius and make sure that this tier stops being a menace? Is it to finally get that pick onto Benny? I mean, he's got 50 seconds until this alternate timeline is back up. If you're the Kings, what do you do against this Valkyrie squad?
I mean, the issue is, if I'm the Kings, I'd be doing exactly what they were doing, and focusing out BennyQ first is the call. The issue is, Netrioid keeps getting left alone with Aquarius, and so far has not won that 1v1, not a single time. Netrioid has been consistently dying to that tier in these team fights. So either Genetics has to stay back and peel, and hopefully Variety and CaptainTwig can kill BennyQ, which is just not the case. CaptainTwig has been able to kill only when BennyQ gets a crack in when he's dying. Like, that's it. If Genetics goes in first, gets the relics down, and then Twig comes through, there's a kill onto Benny. If it's just CaptainTwig, I'm pretty sure Kraken just deletes this Pele before the ult even comes through. So I think they're doing everything they can. It's just Netrioid has to live to Aquarius. At the moment, was never possible. Maybe after an upgraded starter item, something like that could be the play, but Shell and Beads are available, and EFG is going to be touching down any second, immediately starting the DPS.
Hands Fire Giant started. Variety and Genetics to the front line. Variety goes in. Finds some damage onto Kyrmi. Kraken will stop Variety. And Variety is almost gone for the fight. Big damage out of CaptainTwig, but Variety is gone.
Yep.
CaptainTwig is gone. Genetics left by himself. Yanked into the powwow. Pulled back. But here comes Aquarius to save the day once more. Genetics is gone. And Netrioid is gone. 4 of the Camelot Kings have fallen down to the might of the Valhalla Valkyries. Health bars are low for 2, but not for Aquarius. He will take the fight up against BigManTingz. He will make sure that this Yu Huang does not get to go back to base of his own accord. Instead, a Celestial flight in. Aquarius will stop, if only for an extra moment, waiting for the opportunity to kill BigManTingz while the Valhalla Valkyries do with everything else. No, BigManTingz, can he even make it back? BigManTingz does take down Aquarius. Kyrmi goes in, but he dies to the fountain. Now it's only 3 Valks
No way!
to push him to the Titan. This might be a retreat call now for the Valks.
This is the biggest throw I have ever seen!
BigManTingz has stopped the Valkyries.
This is the biggest throw I have ever seen, and I am not joking. How did 3 people just die to Fountain? I mean, 2 to Fountain, 1 to BigManTingz, 1 to the Titan. That was the easiest end. How did you don't even have to kill him there. I understand Aquarius. In fact, I don't even blame him. But Kyrmi and Gamma, they could have ended 4v1. I mean, Tings has to put on the performance of a lifetime to kill 4 there. But when 3 die to Fountain, yeah, that's going to be pretty easy. Unfortunate. And now the Camelot Kings get to walk up and grab EFG for free.
BennyQ's up. Kraken is the one saving grace that the Valkyries have to get back in this game. The problem is BennyQ's got to go through Variety. No chance the Valkyries make it to Enhanced Fire Giant. And what was potentially game over against the Kings, what was going to be a Game 3 win for the Valks, has been thwarted entirely over greedy play after greedy play. And now it's the Camelot Kings with Enhanced Fire Giant.
I cannot believe that just happened. I mean, again, I don't even fault Aquarius. He's feeling himself. He almost got the solo. But everything that I witnessed after makes absolutely no sense. They were low health bars, so I guess the idea was it was a bit of a risky call. But now the Valks, they are not going to let this chance be ripped from them. They are grouping up in the jungle of the Camelot Kings. This has been where they've succeeded. They're going to hide in the mist, see who walks up. At the moment, it looks like Genetics could be the call, and that's not who you're after. The Magi's Revenge would proc and then probably be able to zoom out of trouble, but here comes Variety and Netrioid. Netrioid just jolted around the corner, too. This could be good if they figure out they can walk up here. Variety with the wraparound, though, might find them out first.
Wait. Does Variety even know? Teleport in, Variety. Ult away instantly. Ricochet off the mark. Can they get it? No, Dueling Dragons. Doesn't find anything from BigManTingz. The plan of the Valkyries has been thwarted for a moment because it's probably not the person they were expecting to walk up closest to them immediately. Variety able to escape thanks to his ultimate.
I mean, yeah, Variety definitely was onto them, or at least wanted to check in that mist to make sure that there was no one there. And now the Camelot Kings they're running for the hills. They're going to back up there. I suppose they sort of have to with the fire minions there. So I guess Primal Fury going the way of the Valks. We're essentially going to see a full reset here for the time being, just because EFG, about 2 minutes and 20 seconds left. The Valks, I'm loving this confidence. They are up 10,000 gold despite the EFG. They are still stepping up extremely far to the enemy jungle, looking for aggression, looking for fights. But now the Camelot Kings are just going to group up towards mid. But the Valks aren't going back. Are we gonna see a base race here? I mean, I don't imagine they win. CaptainTwig immediately channeling the back. They're walking over wards here. Are they gonna go for this?
I think Kyrmi may have walked over the obelisk ward vision. Aquarius goes into the Phoenix. 3 of the Kings are back while 1 pushes up mid-Phoenix.
Netrioid gets
but that 1 is Netrioid, and as long as he has even a single minion, that's enough. But CaptainTwig is low. Variety doesn't find the damage, but Kyrmi does. Aquarius able to take it down. Variety pulled back into the middle of 3. The Kraken will take him down. Wowy,
Netrioid's
killed,
ending.
but it's a base race. Can Netrioid be faster than the rest of the Valkyries? 4 Valks push in, all 5 to the throne room. BigManTingz has got to defend.
It's
the
close.
Valkyries on a base race, but it's the Valhalla Valkyries who win that race and take the set over the Camelot Kings.
Kyrmi leaps up. They are getting extremely hyped, and they deserve it. After that one play, I didn't think the Valks were going to get a second chance at that one. Netrioid was close. Probably, 3k HP left on that Titan. The Ishtar was close, but it was not enough. What an end to that game. Off of, again, quite literally the biggest throw I've ever seen, almost the biggest drop. The Valks are able to close that set out.
That was very close. If Netrioid had a few extra seconds by himself, I don't know if he stopped his back for a moment, if he even tried to back before going into the throne room, but it was dangerously close either way. And you're right to say that that was nearly the biggest throw the Valkyries could have had. They had killed 4 people, 1 guy left, and a Phoenix already gone. All they had to do was just hit the Titan and win, and they nearly wiped because of it.
Aquarius dies to the Fountain and Tings. Kyrmi just dies to Fountain, and then Gamma dies to Titan. They're all like, well, I guess we gotta leave. I mean, what do you do at that point? You just look at your hand. So I'm amazed they were able to just come back after that, because my mental would be gone. I would be slamming F6. I don't know what to do at that point.
Well, make no mistake about it, that win back there is true. The Valhalla Valkyries take down the Camelot Kings in 3. That's it for Chilling on the Cast. We'll throw it back over to Dave and Mifflin on the desk.
I don't know what you say after something like that. That is unbelievable. The way the Valhalla Valkyries are able to win game number 3 here. Should have been a bit cleaner, but you get the win nonetheless. What matters is that at the end of this day, in the standings, the Valks will have an extra win. They'll be able to go back and dissect exactly what goes wrong. We're talking about mental shattered, though. This is a tough one for the Camelot Kings, Miff. I think the Kings a bit shell-shocked with what happened here today.
Emotions are certainly running high in the studio right now. I mean, how could they not be after a game like that, where the Camelot Kings are essentially getting one-man diffed by Aqua for 20 entire minutes, are handed a second lease on life, and then have it immediately snuffed out on a Phoenix? Crazy. While you're simultaneously trying to base race. Does Net win a base race against 4? Absolutely not. Clearly not. If he's back in base, does that game extend? Who's to say? That is a mental crushing game for whichever side would have lost. Had the Valkyries lost, I can't imagine where their hearts and souls are, probably in their throats, right? The Kings, the exact same situation. But that is, at its heart, some of the most entertaining Smite we've got to watch all year.
I think this weekend continues to be the most entertaining SPL weekend we've had in a long time. Think back to every single set we've seen played this weekend. From Friday onward, we've had some of those ridiculous Smite I've seen.
Something's different.
We've had some very, very good sets.
We know what that something is.
We've had some very, very good sets throughout the year, of course. What is it? Oh, I thought you were going to say because Gore's not here.
Oh, no. Wow, you're toxic.
I thought you were going to BM our boy.
You're toxic for even thinking that.
I know. Poor Gore. No, Gore gets to watch back and enjoy reviewing all these incredible games that have happened. The Valhalla Valkyries in 3 get the win over the Camelot Kings, due in large part in Game 3 to Aquarius on the tier, and Aquarius standing by now for the post-game interview.
Yeah, I mean, who else could we really throw an interview to except for Aquarius after that Game 3 performance? Aqua, talk to me about this tier, man. This is some of the grossest gameplay we've seen from you as of recent time. What's going through your head in a game like that?
My adrenaline was definitely pumping. After the Gold Fury steal, I was like, okay, good game. It's going to be a good game. My only thing was when I didn't kill BMT on that end, oh my god, my heart sank. My heart actually sank.
I think it sank for a lot of people because you go down, then Kyrmi tries to hero play in, he dies to Fountain, then Gamma dies to Titan afterward. I'm going to be honest, I kind of forgot about the Gold Fury steal because of everything else going on. Kind of walk me through the reset for you guys, because Game 1, very close game. You get a Fire Giant steal, you extend the game out and end up winning. Game number 2 is kind of a thrash me. What was the mental reset for you guys to come back for Game 3?
Yeah, Game 2, we kind of just threw it as like we just messed up so bad early that like there was no chance, and then reevaluated, got a draft we actually liked, and it went well, obviously.
Yeah, and I mean, stealing a Gold Fury is no easy feat. I think we actually do have a clip of you being able to kind of get in there, sneak your way in, and steal it. I think with just a Fearless is all it was. I mean, you walk up and you see 2 carries bouncing this Fury back and forth to yourself. I mean, you just walked in and took that, but outside of that, kind of talk to me about how the team is feeling now. I mean, I saw Kyrmi jump up. I mean, he's getting real excited. I mean, how's the team feeling after a big win like this?
Yeah, that was a huge morale boost. Like, I could tell we really wanted it, especially like towards the end, because we're like, oh, we might lose. Okay, we got it. Thank God. I was like, sigh of relief.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it was kind of funny, you know, end of game yesterday, BennyQ puts out the tweet, oh, you know, the Susano, it's so easy for them to get wins on that with the conditioner things in. You guys pick up Susano in the very first game out there. Is that just kind of throwing back, showing, you know, yeah, we could still run those kinds of picks too as well?
Yeah, it was just like we didn't really get accustomed to the Aegis thing right away, and we cleaned that up today, so.
Yeah, you definitely cleaned that one up today. A big win for the Valkyries. Congratulations, Aquarius, on your 2-1 over the Camelot Kings. I'll let you get back to celebrate the team. You guys deserve it. We'll throw it back over to the desk.
Valhalla Valkyries will be back in action against the Oni Warriors next weekend. So they get to kick up a little bit, enjoy the win here. And remember, keep things interesting towards the end of Phase 3. Most importantly, for the Scarabs and the Valkyries right now, is building up an identity and building up some consistency, even if you're not piling wins on top of one another, which the Valkyries have now done against the Kings. It's an incredible win. It's about forming an identity as a team, and you look at how Aquarius' God pool has changed out a little bit.
Dave, eyes up. Can't be letting that happen to you, bro. Can't be doing that, dog.
He got baited in so hard.
My man's got to be thinking of, like, why is Aqua standing with an archer shot range? I wonder.
But look, this is what I'm thinking. The way that Aquarius' identity has changed a little bit from early in the year to now, it's been more of these serious dive-in mobility style warriors. A couple games on the tier. Both of the games that the Valks won this set were on tier. Some Bellona picks, Hades as well. I think Aquarius starting to form his own play style within the area of this team. And then this is the game-ending fight. Something about a tier, Myth, and just the way it takes over
It's
games.
different.
It does hit a bit different.
Yeah, I want to give shouts to Benny as well.
Yeah.
Felt like every single one of those fights, and I know everyone at home's thinking, why are you talking about the guy who's 1-4? He's 1-4 because the Camelot Kings dedicated infinite resources to shutting down this Poseidon. It was crazy, the amount of threat he generated simply by existing. I felt like Wowy was invisible. He's like the one guy in the zombie apocalypse just watching everybody run past him to try and get his boy BennyQ in the back free casting. You know, Kyrmi's allowed to get into the back line and just deal damage because everybody's looking at this Poseidon. So he absolutely deserves some credit, especially considering he's able to put up 23,000 damage, or 28 rather, while having all that attention put on him.
And a lot of that attention was from Tingz. Tingz did 41,000 damage in game 3. 13 or so higher than the next highest in the game. Kyrmi deserves the shout-outs after this game. The entirety of the Valhalla Valkyries roster should see this as a team win because it is not easy to beat the Camelot Kings. The Kings are one of the most consistent team-oriented squads we've got in the SPL. So I think top to bottom, this Valkyries team should be proud of exactly what they've built here and exactly what they got, which is a 2-1 win over the Camelot Kings. One set remains in what has been the craziest weekend of SPL so far, and it is the Atlantis Leviathans versus the Tartarus Titans. Two teams where the last time we saw them, they each grabbed themselves a 2-0 win over their opponents. Titans over the Warriors, Leviathans over the same Valkyries we just saw beat the Kings. What a way, Myth, to end this weekend in the SPL. Feels destined that these two teams, Worlds rematch, would be a fun one to end the week on.
And, you know, we had heard from the Kings in the past, and they've gone on record as saying, or at least Twig has, his least favorite teams to play are those at the bottom of the league. Not because he thinks they're bad, but because on any given day, they can just show up, and they are so capable of playing to the top. Consistency has always been the concern with these teams. And that fear proves true in this set. I'm sitting in the break room. The Leviathans are talking. Zap says, how are they going to be the bottom of the league? And they're playing like this. Right. How do you plan for something like this on last week or in the last set? It's a completely different Valkyries. If we can get just 80% of that a little bit more often, I mean, you won't see the Valkyries at the bottom.
Camelot Kings, 5 sets remaining this phase over the course of the next 2 weeks. They remain 2 wins out of the top 2 spots, which is what you're looking for, to just have to win 1 set at playoffs to guarantee a spot at Worlds. Now the Valhalla Valkyries, 2 wins away from tying the Bolts to get out of the bottom 2. They also have 5 sets remaining here this phase. So mathematically still difficult, but definitely not out of the question for the Valhalla Valkyries, especially if they're able to keep some momentum rolling here. But the Bolts also looking very, very good as of late. Now there are 2 teams, Myth, in similar situations, honestly, from matchups we've seen all weekend long that are about to play. The Atlantis Leviathans, they're on top of the standings right now. They want to widen that gap. They see the Camelot Kings now suffer a loss. Leviathans have to realize a win here. Just pads that. We got 5 more sets remaining after this. We got to drop a bunch. They got to win a bunch. This is a fantastic opportunity for the Leviathans to distance themselves from the rest of the pack and maybe the Tartarus Titans to close that gap. 1 set remains in this weekend in the SPL. Titans, Leviathans coming up next.